Good evening and welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Ulysses Town Board. It is October 8th, 2024, and I will call this meeting to order at 7:00 p.m. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, Ms. Bouchard.
Present.
Ms. Weatherby.
Present.
Ms. Olson.
Present.
Mr. Goldman.
Present.
Mr. Boggs.
Present.
Wonderful. We have an agenda that was presented and was posted last Friday. Are there any deletions, additions, subtractions, or modifications anyone wants to make?
Move to approve as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to privilege of the floor. I'll open up my little timer. Any member of the public who wishes to address us for up to 3 minutes is very welcome to. We will be having 2 public hearings coming up after this. So if you're here to speak about those things, you can save your comments for that part if you want and be part of the public hearing. But anything you want to say to the town board, we are open to hearing from you. We go back and forth in person and then remotely. So is there anybody in person who wishes to address the board? Okay. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? So you can always raise your hand or come on video, or just come off mute. Okay, well, it doesn't sound like we have anybody who wants to address us for this portion. So we will then move on to our first public hearing. It was scheduled for 7:00, which means you can start anytime after 7:00. Not like last time when I tried to start us early. So the first public hearing relates to a local law, the Board of Zoning Appeals zoning code amendment law. Is there a motion to open to the public?
Move to open.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there any member of the public who wishes to speak on this zoning amendment law change? Anybody in person? We have up to 3 minutes. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board on this subject? Okay, we'll keep it open a little bit longer, just in case anybody appears or the spirit moves somebody to comment. I will just let the public know too that this is related to a change that allows when items come before the Board of Zoning Appeals, then the advertising related to that, the posting of signage, things like that, related to hearing those cases will be treated in the same fashion that planning board submissions and requests are treated. So that there's parallel notification, so the public is more aware of activities before that board. Is there anybody else who feels compelled to or would like to speak on the subject, either in person or online? Okay, hearing nobody, and we've had it open for a little bit, I would say that accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, moving on to our second public hearing for the night. I think this is a record, at least in my time on the town board. I doubt that that's a true record. But this is a public hearing on a local law park recreation zone zoning code amendment. This is not a duplication. It is truly zoning code amendment. This one relates to the ability for parks that are in the designated park zones to be an allowed use, as opposed to something that you can only do in the park zone with a special permit. So that's the second public hearing. And so before we go on to that though, I should have asked you, Chris, did we have any public comment on the BZA?
No.
Okay, thank you. So I'll accept a motion to open the public hearing on a local law park recreation zone zoning code amendment.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board on this change? Yes, please go ahead.
Supervisor Olson, town board members. I am Carl Pankowski. I live at 1375 Tagatic Boulevard. I'm the chair, Town of Ulysses Planning Board. I'd like to know how the Town of Ulysses plans to deal with the non-USGS intermittent stream. If you look at the little 3-page handout there that I gave you, that dashed line going up through the center of the Salo Preserve is the GIS stream I'm talking about. In the GIS data, the parcel view map with stream saver sublayer turned on at page 2 shows the potential impact of the Salo Preserve. The 200-foot wide blue-green area is a GIS stream with a 100-foot setback on each side of the stream. And that matches the park and rec zone buffer area. So it takes a huge swath up through the middle and restricts seriously what you can do in that area. Our current zoning approved in December 2019, 212-22 defines streams and intermittent streams as those shown on the USGS 7.5 minute quadrangle maps. The buffer part of the same zoning, 212-124, uses the same definition for streams. Since our town planning department provides no clarification between USGS and GIS streams in their site analysis presentations, it's very difficult to determine which intermittent streams actually require setbacks for our current zoning. On page 3 of that Salo handout shows the USGS stream data for the Salo Preserve. Only Trumansburg Creek is present. Therefore, the only effect to the Salo Preserve is an area about 150 foot wide along the southern boundary for Trumansburg Creek and its floodplain, not the potential 200 foot wide area up through most of the preserve with the GIS intermittent stream. The presence of these intermittent streams not recognized by our current zoning can be significant, such as the Salo Preserve. Other areas of large impact are Boulder Creek that goes from 2 USGS intermittent streams to 10 with the GIS data, or the lake shore that goes from 13 USGS intermittent streams to 50 with the GIS data. No area of the town of Ulysses is immune from the impact of these unrecognized streams. As the planning board chair, I'm looking for clear direction from our town board to the town's planning department, planning board, and BZA regarding how to deal with the GIS streams that show up in the map and contents parcel views. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I have a question.
Uh,
How are we?
You can't do that in a public hearing, so we can discuss after.
Okay.
Is there anybody on, that was great, you had 6 seconds left, so it's very little time. Is there anybody online who wishes
Practiced.
to address the town board? Thank you. Is there anybody else in person who wishes to address the town board on this matter? No. Okay,
I
then,
received 2 comments.
oh, thank you, yes.
That I shared with the town board. Do you want me to read them or? Well,
Could-
one from Cynthia Menino, one from Nancy Baylor and the JCA.
Could you give the public an indication of whether they were in favor or opposed?
Both were in favor.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Final call. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the town board in this public hearing on this matter? Okay, I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Move
So-
to close.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Well,
Aye. Okay.
Well, it's appropriate to have one question.
Yeah, can we want to ask some comments?
Sure, we can do, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't understand the relationship between what you were presenting and the zone and the this local law we're doing. Were they related?
So what?
I understand your issue with the mapping,
Yes.
but how does that relate to what this, you were doing 3 minutes in general, or were you doing it on this local law?
Well, the local law change, the planning board gave you our input on that, and we're in favor of what you're doing there.
Right,
This is just a targeted opportunity to show you the impact of this GIS streams, and it relates. I deliberately chose this because it's public property.
Right,
It is not some personal property coming before either the BZA or the planning board
right,
and tipping it one way or the other. But trying to get across the issue with this that keep coming up, and what do we do with them? How do we approach that? Our zoning, as I read our zoning, clearly refers to the USGS stuff. It
Right.
has absolutely nothing to do with the Tompkins mapper. The GIS stuff was presented to the town board twice in 2018 by the GIS group.
right,
And I've read the town board minutes from then to now, twice, looking to see if there was ever anything the town board did that said you could use what's in the GIS data. I find no discussion, no resolution, nothing that says you can use the GIS stuff. So coupling that with the way our zoning is written, I don't think we can include any of these non-USGS streams and require setbacks on people's property. But if the planning board puts it into the documents, it becomes part of the public record for that person's property. And somewhere's down the road, this person's gonna wanna build on this property, and all of a sudden, they're gonna find out they have a stream that they have no clue where this thing came from. And it'll, 10 years down the road, nobody else is going to know how it got there. But they're going to have to deal with setbacks based on this stream that did not meet our zoning. And they're dealing with it. And we are requiring people to do setbacks based on streams that don't meet our current zoning. And if you get in the lake shore where it gets to be 75 foot wide in the steep slope area, that's a big chunk of ground, because half of the lake shore properties are 100 foot wide or less. So that's the reason I,
got it. So didn't we discuss this very thing by having, we're gonna have a group committee or something?
Yeah, and I referred it to the
Mhm.
planning board and the comp plan should work together. Last meeting for the comp plan committee, it ran well over, it went over their time.
Yeah,
In terms of, I mean, Carl was there, we had a very full agenda.
but this has been coming up for years now. So this issue, what he's referring to. So do you have a recommendation?
my recommendation is that in relation to somebody building and, you know, flood issues and that sort of stuff, or the, you know, the erosion control and that kind of stuff, we want to look at it. But I think we need the town planning department to clearly identify in their documents whether it's a USGS stream or a GIS stream. And we can only actually require the property owner to abide by setbacks per our zoning for USGS streams. We can request that they do the same thing for the GIS data, but I don't think we can, at least as I read, I don't think we have the authority to require them to abide by the setbacks if it doesn't meet what our zoning says. But that's my personal opinion and I've not talked to Nate or run this by Nate to get a real legal opinion. I'm just a new guy to the town that's kind of digging into this area.
Do we know how the Tompkins mapper GIS data is developed?
It comes from LiDAR stuff. The map that the town, let's see, the local wetlands map that our town board, added to our stuff here in 2019, the summer of 2019, actually shows all these streams buried into it. And that was a big consortium in 2012 that put that wetlands map together. So there's
Based off
LiDAR,
of like a survey, or the actual field survey, or LiDAR
they're
survey?
just all LiDAR inputs.
Okay.
There's no, that I can find, there's no geologist verification of any particular of these. Some of these little streams from the lakeshore only come up as far as Highway 89. Some of them get up to the Black Diamond Trail, some of them go much deeper inland. You know, so, but I don't have the verification on them. I realize the USGS stuff is from the 1950s, 1960s. It's very old data, but all of that's, all the USGS streams show up in the GIS data. There's none of them that disappeared or anything like that.
Does the DEC map this stream? This government stream?
I gotta look at the DEC and see what they're using. Normally, the DEC has been coming up very close to the USGS stuff.
They do, but then they take into if there's surveys or updates that like applicants or landowners or other surveyors do, they can update their maps. And that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why they're changing their definition of wetlands in
Yes,
January 1st.
yeah.
So does this get fixed if we went to a GIS mapping system? And change the zonings to allow that?
I would go and look very carefully at that. This display of the parcel view stuff behind you over here.
Yeah.
An awful lot of that it says is residential. A good part of that is farmland. Ms. Weatherby is a good indication of that. So validity of what GIS is presenting. Until I had a lot more confirmation that it gave me exactly what I thought I was looking at, I would be very careful doing that. But at some point, yes, but if you do that, you're going to add about another 60 streams to the town. The sneaky difference being,
That's it. Well,
this is the USGS streams. This is what currently shows in our zoning.
mhm.
Dark solid lines are the perennial streams, the dash stuff are the intermittent streams. If you bring in if you bring in the GIS data, this is what the town now looks like.
Hmm.
I think this is a very important topic and I'm not trying to,
Right.
but it wasn't, so, but we,
Yeah, this
we
is
have.
way beyond,
No,
No, so-
I asked you.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, no, so, and I wanted to give its due diligence, where my recommendation for this specific topic would be, is that it sounds like the planning board needs to get with legal counsel and have a conversation. And I think that's the logical next step and a resolution from the planning board, because I think there are a lot that, it's obviously, how water flows in Ulysses is incredibly important. Having accurate mapping is incredibly important, but I think there's still some unknowns and, I think it makes sense to.
Yeah. Our last meeting a couple weeks ago, we spent about 30 minutes on this, and out of that was the exact same thing. We put together a series of questions that we think we need answered. Get them to Nate and give his group time to look at it ahead of time before we schedule a meeting with them, so they know what we're asking about. We'll share that with the town board too.
Think that'd be great.
Put it together so that if you have additional stuff that you want to see, or if it looks like we were off track, we're looking for help on this.
Yeah,
All right, so
Because-
you're gonna spearhead this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I stuck my hand up,
I appreciate
brought the
it.
problem up, so yes, I will. share
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
sounds good, thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
For a point of clarification, when you say you want the planning document changed, are you talking about the application materials or other planning documents that you're
What the
referring
planning
to?
board puts together their site analysis,
Uh-huh,
that's where they bring this stuff in.
okay,
And I'm sure they can put in their annotation that says, this is a USGS stream, this is a GIS stream. It clearly will segregate what we're talking about. Because at this point, unless you're someone over the top like me and go back and dig it up and figure it out, you have no real way of knowing, just looking at their site analysis, whether it is something that I feel we can legally require setbacks on or not.
okay.
Yeah, okay.
I think they can annotate that pretty easily. They really have to be able to use the GIS stuff to put all this together.
Yeah.
This is a sure real case of technology has seriously gotten ahead of regulation.
Yeah,
And we just need to work at fixing it.
okay.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. We have, if Linda would like to do an announcement, I'm hoping we can do any other announcements towards the end of the meeting, just because we have a lot of business, but, Linda, is there anything that you, or Carl, it sounds like we got a lot from planning board, so, maybe there are other updates you'd like to include as well. But Linda, is there anything from, Water Source Protection Committee, you wanted to update us on?
The only thing is that we did have the second run of testing, and that's completed. We don't have the results yet. I'm hoping by our next meeting that we'll have that.
Great,
Good idea. It's going on, but we do plan right now, it looks like we're in good shape. We're having that first good draft of the plan at the end of the month.
Oh, wonderful. Great. It's just as long as nobody else quits the job or retires or,
Would be helpful.
That'd be helpful. Wonderful, thank you. Is there anything else from planning board that you'd like to report? Okay, wonderful. Is everybody else okay moving on to announcements later? I did communicate with legislator Corman and she's in a budget meeting tonight too. So she may be able to join us later, but otherwise she's gonna be sending us an update from the county. Okay, go through I'm mindful of, I've got Niels on here to talk about something in the B fund. So I'm hoping that we can get to that fairly quickly, but I did want to touch on the local laws that we have next under old business. We have resolutions that were prepared by legal counsel for the zoning, and then Carissa actually updated them, I believe, in your packet. If you keep going through your packet, there are the originals. The originals look like this. This is what was presented over the weekend. And then Carissa actually filled in some of the blanks for us. And so that in your packet looks like this.
It was exhibit A in there. I didn't see exhibit A. We're on park and recreation zone, right?
Nope, we're on the BZA. We have the seeker and we have the. I don't have an exhibit A. I'm sorry.
In the resolution, it says exhibit A attached here too.
From the seeker. Oh. I don't have an exhibit A. Niels, would you mind coming off of mute for just a second? Because we might bump these till the end of the meeting.
Hello.
Hey, Neil.
Hello.
An exhibit A being mentioned in the
It's in both.
it's in both of the laws on the zoning changes. Did we have an exhibit A and I just failed to print it or include it?
Exhibit A is just the amendment, the actual code amendment.
Okay.
The actual law language.
Oh, the actual law language? As Krista
Correct.
just said? Okay.
Correct.
And that is also posted. I just didn't print it. Correct? That's the material that's posted, that you posted.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll check on the website. Mhm. Full text of the proposed amendment. Okay, so this was posted online. This is on our website right now. This is exhibit A. This is the. Do people want me, I can get it printed out if you want to see a physical copy, but this was on the web posting.
It just limits us with the minutes when we.
Thank you, Niels. Okay. The first step in this process is to do the seeker resolution. And that was prepared for us. So are we feeling, how are people feeling? We're the. Oh, so we can have a conversation. I will move the seeker amendment related to the local law pertaining to the Board of Zoning Code Appeals zoning code amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about the seeker? Again, this law is to literally just put up signs so people can make sure there's public is aware.
That is separate resolution to do the seekers? or-
We did the seeker. Can we do it already?
No,
It's not.
Or we looked at it. About a month ago?
Hmm.
No?
yes,
We looked at a draft.
We looked at the
Before the
part, we looked at the
public
part
hearing.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't find a determination of a problem. So this is just, the final resolution of the seeker. That we did our, basically, we did our due diligence and, we agree that, this is an unlisted action.
And you'll complete part, or Niels will complete, somebody will complete parts 2 and 3.
Is that correct, Niels?
So the town board is the one that goes over part 2. Those were previously drafted, so they were on the SharePoint. I don't know if those were distributed to the board as a whole, but there's a series of items you go through and determine basically that there's either no or minimal impact. And then Form 3 is what Caitlin would actually sign, and then I would sign as the preparer.
Okay, Niels, so what I'd like to do is if everybody, because want to make sure we have the document in front of us before we have this conversation. I think what we'll do is, Niels, could you pull those quickly and just send them to me, and we're gonna move on to the budget. Just because I don't want to be digging through SharePoint and making sure we have the right document.
Sure. Or for both the BZA and the
Yeah.
park zone. Okay.
That's what you gave us.
So there's actually the seeker form that was also in SharePoint, but I don't have, I don't
Oh,
want
in
to spend
addition to
time.
the
Yeah, so
resolution.
we have, so we go through the seeker form.
Yep.
And then we pass the resolution.
So which, are we working on the 212-16 or the 212 article? 18?
We are, I've got them all mixed up now.
Yeah, that's so did I. I
Um,
shuffled my deck.
okay, hold on. We are working on the,
Let's see which one's on.
Yeah.
Yeah, 212, this one.
Give me
or the
just
one
a sec.
before. Or 212-16.
we are not working on 212. 18, we're working on the other one.
212, okay, so 212-16 goes with the BZA.
So 212-18 is the Parks and Recreation.
Okay, so this is Fox.
So we're doing the parks.
Well, we're doing the BZA one, but we're not gonna do it right now. We're gonna,
This
Push
is
it.
getting really confused.
I know, that's why I'm saying taking a pause.
Okay.
And we will come back to this. We're gonna move on to the budget and I will pull together Niels is sending me the secret documents to walk through. Okay. Let's see. Yep, now it's time for Blissey. I'm gonna pull it. Thank you. Move your chair if you see fit. Thank you.
You want to sit in the captain's chair while she's doing it?
Yeah, no, that's okay. I do have an updated document though to hand out for your reference on the budget. So you don't have to go hunting for anything for this. Oops, sorry.
No,
I have been too. Yeah. Yeah. So the budget document that I just handed out is almost identical to the one you received on the 24th. However, a few changes have been made, which we're chronicling in a resolution each thing, as hopefully you will approve them. The changes have to do with the additional information I received between the last meeting and this meeting. So, do you want me to just quickly
Information
do
about-
that, or do you
yeah.
want to start with B?
Why don't you go through it quickly, because I think Niels is pulling that thing for me right now. Why don't you
Okay.
quickly go through the changes based on the information you received, and then I would like to, while he's here, so we can cut him loose. He does have information on one of the items for the B fund, but I wanted to make sure
Great.
you're.
Great. So the changes I made, I'm just overview. I got more information from our insurance agent about our general liability insurance, so in the A fund. I actually reduced our estimate to about a 14% increase instead of a 25% increase. So still going up, but I don't think it's gonna go up that much based on the information. I
Says
received.
1910.4.
That's correct. Yeah, and it is highlighted and notes are made in that document. In the relative, in the fund where it's affected. That was a $5,000 difference, a reduction. However, I also got information that the Medicare supplemental plan that the town offers, the rates are going up substantially. So last year they didn't go up at all. This year they're going up closer to 25%.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge premium, but $100 increase and a $400 premium is a lot.
I heard a lot from my mother on this topic.
So it looks like for a couple of years, there were little or no increases, and now it's just going up a whole bunch all at once. So it did impact our health insurance costs in 3 funds. In the general fund and the 2 highway funds, DA and DB. Oh, in total, I think the impact was around $5,000, so. You save
So
on
that
one
balances
hand.
out
Yeah.
with the-
But in each fund, obviously, it affects each fund, and so that I made those changes now that I know what the premium is going to be. And then I also increased the estimate for revenue in the court. Because I now have received data on revenues through August. And we've already just about met our budget. And so I know we're gonna exceed that, and so I increased our estimate for the current year, and I also increased the number for next year. So. Those are the things that have changed in this document, and again, I've noted each of them.
You haven't had any new updates on the ambulance reimbursement?
No. No, I don't think I have any information that would lead me to believe that our numbers should change from what they are in the budget. I mean, if you look at the financial statements, it's that I mean, so this is the end of a quarter, so I've published. Yeah, scratch that word. I've posted the financial statements and the analytic document that I prepare in with your board materials. But so you can see that we're current through August in terms of receiving our revenue, but it still doesn't indicate that we should be planning for more at this point.
So, it was on the agenda. It was my understanding, let me back up. It was my understanding that last night the village board was considering the new contract, the new provider to switch to. I have not followed up for billing software. I've not followed up as of that meeting, and I didn't attend it. So that was what I understood from the head of EMS, is that they should be considering their new contract. We went through the RFQ process that Lexi participated in.
Yep, and hopefully that will lead to, in the future, improved revenues for all the municipalities participating, but we don't really know yet.
Yeah.
So those are the only changes that have occurred between what we looked at in September and now. Again, they're all highlighted and marked on your document. And I'll be tracking any other changes that are made between the initial tentative budget that was presented and what the board ends up approving as a preliminary budget. And it'll go in a resolution. So. I think that's it.
Okay. Niels, are you available? Actually,
I'm just sending it right now.
okay, perfect. Then I will, while you're sending that, I will, kick off, I think, and then.
Do you want? Do you want me to walk through the fund at all, or what would you, how would you
Would
like to
you,
start it?
I was hoping you could give us an overview of, what we're facing in the B fund.
Sure.
And where the
Sure.
rubber's really hitting the road, so to
Sure.
speak.
So in the document that I just handed out, which is front to back. And I'm sorry I didn't page number it. That was something I wanted to do, but didn't. But you can find the B fund expenditures on one page, and on the reverse side, you'll find the revenues. And in fact, if you look at the revenue page towards the bottom, you'll see the challenge that we face in general. And that is that if we try to include all of the items that are in the budget right now for B fund, we would need to appropriate more fund balance than our policy allows for. So the appropriation of $178,515 exceeds, what we would recommend based on our fund balance policy of $170,000. So there's not a lot of wiggle room in the B fund. The only revenue source other than the fees that we charge is sales tax. And so that's sort of the big picture, the challenge that we face in terms of the number of initiatives and projects that we have going on and that have been requested, and the amount of funds available to fund them. Looking at the expenditures in B fund, I'll just highlight that we are anticipating some additional legal costs related to zoning and code enforcement.
We are not anticipating revenue associated with that, based on the information we've heard from our legal authorities. There's no real anticipation of revenue to offset that.
So that's B 1420.4 you increased.
That's correct. That's correct. And whether that's enough, it's hard to say, but we did add about 15,000 to what was initially planned for there.
We do have contingency.
We do also have a contingency account of $20,000 that could be used towards that, which is B 1990.2. The other things that I think are, again, project-oriented things that are large and impacting the budget, obviously, is the comp plan. And that's, I'm sure, what Niels is going to be speaking to. So I won't say a lot more about that. And then there's also a request from the Water Source Protection Committee for a project for water testing. So that's also in there right now. So all of those things are included in this budget. And I think I'll stop there because I know you want to give Niels a chance to speak, right?
Yeah.
About what's going on with the comp plan.
So, in the budget is, a request for an additional $37,000 to pay for a full, GEIS. And this was not originally budgeted was not previously budgeted. Part of it is being paid for already, is part of the comp plan, process. The quote, we accepted MRV's quote, and their quote was for doing a partial one. The other applicant did put in their quote, it covered a full one. And it was not something, it was in our FRQ or RFQ. But this is, it's not a new expense, it's a better understanding of a recommended expense. And I asked Niels to attend, and Niels, after you're done with this, please feel free to cut loose. I want to be mindful of staff time. But I did ask him to attend to explain the GEIS process and why it's recommended. And as a follow-up, the comp plan steering committee did pass a resolution at our last meeting recommending it be included in this budget. Niels, can I pass it to you? Did I set it up enough?
Okay, yep. Okay, so yeah, I've been mulling around how to maybe make this easier for decision making, and it might be easy to parse it out into two bites in order to help make that decision. One is a best practice, what I'd consider as a best practice, and then the other one is financially related. So when we were working through the RFQ, we gave information to the comp plan steering committee and got town legal's opinion as well on just the merits of doing an EIS or an environmental impact statement. So the state legislator, when they passed the state's environmental laws, or SEQR for short, designated some projects as what they call a type 1 action. And a type 1 action is something that the state has felt is likely to have a significant adverse impact and very likely to require an EIS. Comp plans are one of those that the state has designated that it's very likely that it will call or trigger an EIS. And part of that is further fleshed out outside of the regulations in DEC's SEQR handbook. So they provide more information. It's a little bit more fleshed out to answer questions. They update it periodically. The current one that we're on is their 4th edition, I believe in 2020. So you can look that up online to get a little bit more information, but they list out 4 different reasons why DEC recommends municipalities do an EIS for their comp plans. One of them is that it's the most appropriate, in their opinion, the most appropriate way to analyze the environment, the cumulative, I should say, environmental impacts of a comp plan, and to analyze further actions or a series of actions, subsequent actions that may take place. For example, a rezone, zoning code amendments, if there's any CIP projects like culverts or bridges that need to be done, things like that. The other one is it is one of the most significant land use actions a municipality will ever do, ever. Third one is that SEQR in itself provides incentives for doing an EIS. One of those is that in the process of doing an EIS, we're going to see what actions the town is going to want to do or think it needs to do within the planning cycle. For the next 10 years, we're going to know, for example, we need to do our zoning code update. There's some culverts that need to be looked at. And as long as we identify those and note what potential impacts may happen and list the mitigations for those, once we get to those projects a couple of years down the road, we don't have to comply with having to do an EIS anymore. So it uploads all that work currently right now. And then the last one that why they recommend it is it's the best way to gain public input on a huge variety of topics and the best way to get public feedback. And that primarily what we call as a FEAF, which is for type 1 actions. It's a full environmental assessment form. Those are primarily for projects like shovel type projects like culvert replacements and things like that, or water extensions, not for planning documents. And that's the other reason why DEC recommends doing an EIS, is they feel it is more appropriate for planning related projects versus shovel ready projects. So with that, you know, as a best practice measure, that's where DEC, your town planner, and legal have both said we should do an EIS. The second component is financial. DEC doesn't actually come out and say this, but in their handbook, they do note, because if we do all this identification and mitigation up front, that saves time down the road, and saving time either for your professional staff or your town legal or your consultants is going to save time and money overall. This comp plan, we asked Matt for ballpark figures of what it would cost to do environmental reviews for from a consultant. Ballpark figure we were getting for like base environmental review was basically $5,000 to $6,000 a pop. And if we need to do an EIS, you're looking at over $30,000. So what we currently have in our contract with MRB is 27 or 28,000. They quoted us an additional 37 to do an EIS, which could, again, most likely if we do it correctly, last for the town's projects for the next 10 years. And they also said that a single EIS or a full review would cost, over 30,000. So if we have to do several projects that are going to trigger an EIS, the town overall is going to be, spending a lot more money than if we do it right now. So from a fiscally conservative standpoint, town legal and your town planner is recommending that we do that now. Hopefully that answered what you're looking for.
That's gonna cost how much?
37.
37?
Addition.
Addition.
So it's like 65,000 or something.
Total, yeah. Part of that's already embedded in the cost that we've already committed to, an additional 37.
And that does, we are getting half of this from the DEC through that grant that we received. So we're not paying the full.
We're receiving a total of $55,000 regardless
Was,
from the DEC.
did you or Neil say that this was included in the other consultant's proposal though?
I believe it was,
It was included in the other consultant's proposal, but
but the
the
costs did not honestly seem realistic for what they were proposing to do.
So can this be kicked down to 2026?
Not if we
No.
want the comp plan done. The seeker has to be done before the comp plan can be adopted. So our goal is to get the comp plan adopted in 2025. Seeker has to be done. And we have to declare neg deck prior to the comp plan being adopted. So it's got to be done concurrently. And we're hoping this is 2025, just because it's taken us a couple years to get the contract set up with the DEC. It's not the GEI, so it's a GEIS. I think that's something that we need to be very specific about. This is a generic EIS, which is really made for projects like planning documents, a comp plan, a master transportation plan. The generic EIS looks at a suite of environmental impacts that could happen for a planning document. It's not going to address every single potential thing that the town might be looking at to do over the next 10 years, but it covers it in a general suite where any future actions could be weighed against what we state in the GIS and supplemented. There are a lot of municipalities do a combined GEIS and a comp plan. It's a single document.
which
I
is-
don't like it personally. It's hard to read, I think, but it's possible if we wanted to do a single document.
So it's possible that even if we spend this additional money, there may be other projects that are not covered by the GEIS.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, if, for instance, like our comp plan might talk about housing and culvert replacement projects, those might likely be covered under the GEIS where we don't have to do anything.
Particularly the ones that.
We already know.
We already have our non-point source report on. We have the 6 culverts that were identified. The comp plan committee can actually, or I'm sorry. As part of the comp plan process, the comp plan can actually effectively adopt that report as saying, we already know these are priorities. Because we know those culverts are in terrible shape, right? So short of the comp plan saying we should shut that road, we need to replace that. And we're already in process, right? We received funding to do one. We have application, we received funding now to do 2. I think the Maplewood wasn't actually in that report. But the whole point of that is that we can actually adopt into the comp plan those activities. And so as part of this ArcGIS, or I'm sorry, GEIS,
Generic
not ARC.
environmental impacts.
GEIS, they can actually, the engineers, when they're putting this report together, can actually look at those specific projects. So for instance, if we identify Garrett Road, which is one of our culverts that needs to be replaced, and it's identified in the comp plan, it's considered in the part of the GEIS, it's going to be much cheaper for us at the environmental review stage than it would be otherwise. Now, for instance, pretend this happens 3 years from now, and something else happens environmentally. And we need to look at additional things. We basically use the GEIS as 85% of the work, and then we can do an addendum to look at whatever the new mitigating concerns are. Because something that can happen is that over the course of 10 years, state laws can change, federal laws can change, and so something that was not considered in the GEIS, it needs to now be considered, but now you don't have to go start from scratch from the beginning. And so because we are forward looking in terms of our planning of infrastructure, we know we can save money on that. Now, where we couldn't save money necessarily is if we have well, actually, I think we probably still save money, to your point, is if there's a whole new culvert that we have a rapid rain emergency, the road washes out, fill in the blank, we're in town that we have not identified as being under threat. The GEIS could still serve as a baseline for that project, but it probably would require more extensive environmental review because we're not able to early identify it. The other big place that when I talked to Nate, and I did pass out an email from him, that it's very standard and considered best practice from the DEC to do a GEIS at the same time you do your comp plan, number one. So DEC is recommending it. Nate is recommending it also for some of those reasons. I just wanted to flag the part that there is flexibility built into this problem if conditions do change. And so his recommendation is also that from both a staff time and a potential cost of hiring a consultant time, that this is an investment worth making now, and it's unfortunately not one we can push off.
Well, where's that money coming?
Well,
Fund balance?
But I thought in the B fund where we can't, that would take us down under our category.
Should we reduce contingency or something? I mean,
So what we need to do, so I wanted Niels to be here in case anybody else has any other questions for Niels, so we can cut him loose, but I wanted him to hear for this part. We need to discuss each potential high expenditure item in the B fund, and we need to put priorities in place in terms of funding priorities.
All right.
Any other questions for Niels?
No.
Okay, thank you so much, Niels. I appreciate it. I got the documents you sent me. So we'll work through the seeker when we come back to that part of the meeting.
And I want to look at a couple of revenue lines. So if you look at B2555 building permit,
Yes,
this is a wacky number.
that's because there's one large building permit in this year that is not gonna repeat.
How much is the revenue on that?
$50,000.
Oh,
And it reflects 6 years at minimum of work on behalf of part of the town. It's the CARS project. And the CARS
Oh.
project first came to
Yeah.
the town when I was the planning board chair. So,
So we are increasing the estimated revenue generally. But we can't assume another $50,000 permit. So
Yeah.
that's why the number for the current year projection is very high. And
Got it.
compared to the next year's budget.
Because we're proposing at the organizational meeting to bump up fees for certain types of projects.
That's correct. And so budget to budget, we are increasing that revenue quite a bit. Not only because we're increasing fees, but because our experience has shown that we have more activity going on. But those one-time large projects, those are not necessarily repeatable and hard to predict.
I also think your interest in earnings projection is a little light. Maybe you could do at least 3.5.
Well, but that also assumes that I have $300,000 in fund balance to invest,
Which you don't.
which I might not have if we're going to appropriate this much. So I'd say, again, I would say that that's probably, I don't know that I would increase that number for revenue at this point.
Oh, that's the authority. Okay. That's a DEC grant. The comp plan, that 40,000.
Yes, and so what happened was, you know, in the original budget process, the activity was split more between the 2 years. And now there's just a little bit in 2024, and the majority of the activity is showing in 2025. Both the revenue and the expenditures. So one option in terms of revenues in the B fund is to allocate more sales tax, the B fund, and take it away from A.
And you can do that?
We can allocate sales tax however we want, but then you have to think
Are we
about
gonna
how it
split
impacts
Right.
the other fund.
You have to raise the.
Then you have to
raise the
either,
property.
you know, take more appropriated fund balance out of another place, which we don't necessarily have a lot, you know, huge amount of leeway in, or have it impact taxes. So, but that's an option. I mean, it's something you could talk about.
So for the most part. In the B fund. I'm just going through these are line items for staffing or
Yep.
department
Yep.
support.
So the most, so from, you know, B 3310. Down through, you know, say excluding the comp plan. And I mean, most of this stuff is just routine operational activities for planning, zoning, code enforcement. And the things that are large and unusual are the comp plan. The proposal for the water source, the water testing, and the additional attorney fees related to a code enforcement issue. I mean, those are like items that are large and unusual and aren't necessarily routine operation things. So,
And we've already made a commitment on the zoning.
well, the code
Let's do the
enforcement issue,
enforcement.
you're moving forward with the enforcement, right?
Yeah,
I support.
yeah.
Wasn't,
So
some of the water testing supposed to be funded by ARPA?
No.
Am I, no?
We didn't allocate any funding for that. Basically, a parking lot's gonna eat almost everything. And it was what, if there was money left over, we were going to, but that was before we had estimates, and then the estimate came back at between 185, like the preliminary estimate is 185,000 to over 300 for permeable pavement, and so, I mean, hoping it's on the 185 side, but we won't know until we go to bid. In November.
that's kind of.
Yeah.
How many, so 20. I'm just rounding up, I know it's not, $23,000 for water testing, how many wells was that gonna be? Do you remember?
Do you want me to get?
Yeah, we have,
So here, I have
Copies.
copies of the proposals, so folks can take a look at it. I think it is the same document that was, you know, used when the proposal was made to use ARPA funds.
Oh, 100 wells.
But this is different price.
Well, there's another number later on for public information
All right.
that adds to that, that comes up to that total. So it's the 17,729 plus this 5125, which is actually on the very back page for community outreach. So those are those two things add up to that number. I'm assuming that's correct. I did sort of come in the middle of the process, so
So this would be.
This is different than the Department of Health and what they did,
yes,
because they did also well test.
yes,
And they're doing more, right?
they did
They
that.
did
report.
around
Yeah,
the
they
bid
did, they did my house. We found stuff. So I just think we've got real water issues. In this town, and I can't in good conscience not address it. Once we find out about it.
But we also aren't necessarily gonna do much more than provide information to help people out with it, right?
I thought
The
this
town
was-
can't
I thought
Fix
this was
people's
completing-
fix
wells.
people's
but
wells
this
as
is
much
the-
as we might
No,
want to
no,
make sure
no,
everybody
this
has
is
clean water, we
completing
can't.
100 private well tests, right? We wouldn't fix the well, we would put in a.
Right, so we're gonna,
Put in a UV light
well, we
to
can't,
kill the, no, we don't.
The homeowner
The
does.
homeowner does,
Yeah.
but this would help them figure out what if they need to. I mean,
so how many houses were tested this year? In total, between the two,
50.
50, so it'd be 150 total?
Yeah.
What, if with the,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, go.
I was gonna ask, did, not to put you on the spot, but since you're here, did the Water Source Protection Committee look at any potential sources for outside funding for this? Cause this to me, especially given that the committee is wrapping up the report probably this year. And now we have evidence from the DEC, right? DEC did the testing that there are water problems. It seems like it would set us up quite nicely to go after real money to do something that might be testing and possibly a fix.
Yeah.
Or,
It's possible. We haven't, just timing,
yeah,
you know, and yes, absolutely. We could possibly find something, but we don't know.
right.
at
Okay.
this point. And nothing, they haven't had any ideas come to in just the general conversation, so we'd have to do some digging,
Okay.
I think, to find any programs. The only thing is CSI is trying to do more, and I know we fund CSI to some degree. I don't know if there's some partnering we could do with them or something like that, but that's all speculation. And until we get the numbers and, you know, come up with a strategy or some, you know, something coherent about how we want, how we think we can implement. I mean, it could, right now, we don't know the cause, we don't know if we can find the cause, even, you know, there's some patterns that they're seeing. Where they live, so far we don't have an answer, or haven't put it together.
Is Elizabeth Thomas on the committee?
Who?
Is Elizabeth Thomas, former
Oh,
supervisor?
Liz,
Thomas?
yeah,
So
Yeah.
is there any way to partner with the Cuba watersheds, Fluio, or are we at Fluio?
Yeah.
I was wondering too, just because, I mean, they got some fairly bad news related to, the regulations around Owasco Lake and the hopes to be able to piggyback on those regulations.
Well, piggybacking on regulations is always.
Right, except
On
the
the table.
DEC, I mean, you know, that's not going well from that standpoint.
Right.
I just wondered if there, because I think it's important, I just wonder if there's another source, another pot of money that we could use to
Yes.
do it, because
And- yeah.
telling people their water's bad is one thing, but then figuring out how we address it and whether or not we address it with running public water lines in certain sections of the town, things like that, that's a much bigger.
Or providing access to water when they need to draw it or something. like that,
Yeah.
you know, making a facility, helping with them getting tested. I mean, there's all sorts of scenarios. They can help.
Well, I mean, E. coli, it has a simple fix, you put a UV light on it, and it kills it. So it's not a huge deal once you identify it.
Sorry.
But I'm concerned if people can't even afford the testing. I
Right.
mean, we'll just not, we'll not ask for it. And then our residents are drinking E. coli.
And so, yeah, so, I mean, we're just addressing the water side. There's the septic side that may be causing
Right.
the problems.
And there's the source of
Right.
it, which is
Right,
Variety of sources.
So in the
agricultural sources
outreach-
problem.
yeah, so most of the funding that we had in the outreach was to address those things. Trying to make it clear to people that they need to test.
Right.
And they both septic, water, and do that kind of thing and explain to them the significance of, because people, it's.
I mean, what is our moral responsibility as a town board to our constituents?
Well, I'm not disagreeing, and I
Clean
think that,
water and
yeah, I'm not disagreeing,
have
and
water for the next 10 years.
I think having a water source protection plan and taking the necessary steps after that is responsible. I think looking for funds is responsible. I don't, I think the fact that we've gotten 50 free to us water tests to show where problems are, and will be very good to see where all the data comes back at that. It's not, I'm not saying that I'm opposed to doing it, but I think that we need to very strongly look at, if we want to spend for all of these projects at the rate that we should reasonably be spending, then we need to move revenue from A fund into B fund regarding sales tax. And that might possibly look like raising taxes in the A fund further. Because I'm also not willing to deplete. I'm not willing to deplete fund balance this much in 1 year on this many projects. And I think they're all valuable projects, but I think we need to have that real hard conversation of how it's getting paid for. And which projects can be paid for outside with outside money, and which projects are ones we're gonna have to eat the costs on.
Well, when you take, sales tax revenue from the A fund, then you have to raise taxes.
Right.
I don't think-
So effectively, the A fund or the village, the town, including the villages, funding projects that don't benefit the village residents.
I mean, no, because sales tax is ours to choose to how to use. And we have a breakdown, sales tax is currently broken down, and it goes into a variety of different funds. It's not just A fund. So. But B fund doesn't have any place else to derive revenue, so we would need a new, if we're gonna spend this much money, we need a revenue source, and literally our only place to derive revenue from is sales tax. And so A fund residents would start paying more out of their pockets for all the things in the A fund. Because you're dropping a revenue source in the A fund today. So you're dropping a
No,
revenue source in the A fund, which means you have to increase the revenue. You have to match it with an increased revenue in a different, and the only place there is in the tax levy.
What's the tax levy right now?
It's at 5% right now.
Which is kind of more than what we have to do.
Well, actually, if you look back, there were years where the increase was more, but I think that was
2014, 15, it
before
was over
tax
5.
caps came into being, right?
I think so.
I know this is unpopular, but I want to bring it up again in the last meeting. With the. The education, what do they call it, Rebecca?
Youth
Rachel,
employment
the
and youth development.
employment, which I'm all for it. But that's, if you take $27,000. It's benefiting very few, very few people. If you take that 27,000 and benefit more people. So I'm just bringing this is a philosophical question of how you want to spend the money we actually don't even have.
So you're saying the 27,000 that we're putting towards the employment of Zach and Rachel that support the youth in the town is the well testing for $22,000 would support more people?
Yeah.
But that's only 100 houses where we have over the
Yeah.
course of the year
You only have 27 kids.
in the fall,
In one program,
one
Yeah.
program.
running for 2 months.
Right,
And that's
right.
fall programs.
I'm just saying, I'm just bringing this up. We've never, if we allocate resources and you have to choose, we should realize what we're choosing and just be conscious of it. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do the youth thing. I'm all for youth. But I'm just saying, these are real decisions that impact lots of people.
Yeah, we have some belt tightening to do in a lot of lines, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe yeah.
Because we're using a lot of fund balance that really isn't gonna be sustainable past 2025.
I mean, some of this, comp plan will be done next year. So that,
Well, I think that's one of the things of belt tightening. I think if you slow it down.
I don't
spread
think
it-
we can slow it
Yeah.
down. We're gonna lose numbers.
Yeah, it's.
Well, then you have to get new members, but
Uh,
I mean, someplace we've gotta tighten our belts here. And that's never fun.
no.
But we're also under a contract for the services to be performed.
Right.
And so we can't just decide that we're gonna take an extra year with a contractor.
I think you gotta do the comp plan.
A lot of things we've got to do here though.
It's true, it's true. I mean, all right, so let's go over where we can cut, where you see we can cut.
Legal bills are really high in this fund, and so that's,
In what, let's see, in which line fund do we have the most fund balance? Like we're over our, we're at the top of our limit.
Well, if you look at this page here. There's all the fund balance summary. Okay. At the beginning, right after. Right after the summary page.
I got it.
Yeah.
So,
So unappropriated fund balance as a percent of appropriations. It's actually,
the A and the B are over the limit at this point. Right.
not,
UAFB is percent of appropriations on the A fund. And the
Right.
fund balance policy is 20 to 30%.
right, so I'm just saying A is probably has the most flexibility in terms of
Right.
fund balance. There is more fund balance in your highway funds,
Right.
but those are pretty directed towards those activities, so
Right.
you can't just move that around. You know, that has to stay for the purpose that it's intended. So, you know, the area where you really have flexibility. When you say, can fund balance be used for different things, is a fund, it has the least restrictions on it, I guess is what I'd say. But it's not like we have a ton of fund balance there, once we've appropriated what we're planning to appropriate,
Right. So,
even though we're over our policy by a little bit.
sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure where else. We go.
Well, I have building insurance. So it's gonna go up that much. You reduced it by 5,000 because you got the action.
Well, I don't have the actual number. What I got was a better estimate of what they're seeing in terms of increases. Last year, we saw a very large increase in liability insurance, a lot, everybody did. So I think we were being very conservative. And then I kind of brought that down a little bit, because I think we're budgeting more than we needed to. But we still don't have the actual policy numbers yet. We won't until later in the fall.
Michael, do you have any suggestions?
You know, if you can carve something out of each one. You know, I don't want, this to be a. A youth versus water testing, but if you do one less youth and one less well kind of thing is where I'm going with it.
the one less youth is cutting staff. You can't just do, it's not equal or. Cutting youth will trigger massive issues related to county funding. We have an MOU with the village, and this program has been running for decades. So I know I'm just alerting you that there's nobody in attendance right now who's complaining, but I can guarantee you at the next meeting there will be.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's not a one less child and one less well gets covered conversation. It's just not an apples to apples comparison.
There's 125,000 for the comp plan. That include, wasn't there 55,000 we're getting for that already? Or is that on top of the 55,000?
There's revenue
That's
also
reflected.
that's budgeted.
Right.
And in 2025, that revenue is 40,000, because some of it is earned in 2024. So that 40,000 offsets, that
125.
125,
Yeah,
but but that's where we're at. And this 125 includes doing the GEIS. I left. the
Oh, that
GEIS.
includes the 37,000.
Yeah.
Does.
Yeah.
It's, that's what the note says.
That is a big,
That's like
that's like,
well, I don't know how they could have left it out. I mean, that just feels disingenuous to me.
That MRB left that out of theirs and the other people had
Yeah.
it in theirs. That does seem disingenuous.
Well, it's not. I think disingenuous is not necessarily the right term. I mean, the comp plan steering committee thoroughly vetted both applications. They were not identical examples of each.
No.
And so there were lots of variations, and the comp plan committee made a recommendation to the town board. The town board was provided with the applications. And, you know, there were differences throughout the process of these two applications. So, or the two proposals. And so the comp plan committee voted in the one that they thought would best serve the needs of the town. Now, for further context on paying for a GIS, the town board can opt not to pay for a full GIS, but their basic review will happen, is already included in that contract. If anything comes up as an issue, it will trigger a full GIS. It'll trigger a full GEIS, which we would not have planned for. So there's the very real possibility, and that's why they recommend you do the full GEIS from the start, because when we do the first round of review, if it triggers an issue, I mean, you can speak to this a lot. I don't handle this. If it pulls a red flag of an environmental concern, it will automatically require us to go through the full GEIS. So we're running the risk by not it's a gamble, quite honestly, and it will cost more money later.
When did this just come up that we knew that wasn't included in the MRB proposal?
I think it was when we were doing budgeting.
Yeah, I mean, so I've known about this now for, I think we've done it maybe for a month and a half or so. I took it to the comp plan steering committee first for their consideration of what they recommended.
Yeah. I mean, I'm only aware since I started working on the
Right,
budget,
Right.
so this is all new to me. But only because I'm new to my role.
I think it triggered in the line by lines.
Yeah.
That is when we sat down in line by line reviews for this fund.
It's Neil's brought it up or something, isn't it? Yeah.
And so then I took it to the next comp plan steering committee. And now they're bringing the recommendation to the town board, so.
Right. So the gist is if we pay the 37,000 now, it's gonna be less money later.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And you all agree with that?
I mean, I've seen it in real life. It
Yeah.
happens that way. And I will just for the record say EIS for $55,000 is a pretty good deal. Usually it's a lot more than that.
Mm.
I can't find it here. I mean, I know. What are we, so we have all our internal rec programs. Where is the partnership? The rec partnership.
I'll tell you what.
Yep,
line
I-
that's on.
I can't do anything about it in this budget. We are under
Because we have
contract. It
contract.
requires 18 months to get out of that contract. So that's a non-starter.
Okay, what do you think? What do we do then?
I think that we'd be penny wise and pound foolish not to do the
Right, so
GEIS.
shouldn't we do
So
that?
that
Where
one.
where do you think the revenues?
I think that. I think we, you know. I think the town board has already committed to the legal processes.
Yeah.
And so. The easy route would be to cut in legal, but I think that could really bite us in the butt, potentially. And we are budgeting for some amount of activity. But not a full completion of both projects. In the 2025 budget. We may be able to adjust that a little bit. But pragmatically, what I think we should do is we should get a water source protection plan. I think we need to have some very serious conversations with the DEC. I think we need to have some very serious conversations with Tompkins County Department of Health. And we need to find money to solve this problem. I think the well testing program is a wonderful program. That's not a criticism of that. I just think that that's a Band-Aid and we might possibly have a gunshot wound. And we need to go bigger than that. And I think we have the steps in place to actually go after real money in doing that. But I also think we're too small to tackle it. I think this is we need to put pressure on Tompkins County Department of Health and the State Department of Health to help us find solutions for property owners. Because 100 households is a drop in the bucket, literally, no pun intended, in the number of households in our community.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Well, we have 1,700 wells, 1,400 wells.
I think the target of 100 is what we thought we might be able to get past, but also could handle more of the people that really can't afford to do testing.
Right.
And that was the goal, because we do, with the outreach, we expect to reach people who can afford to do it and emphasize to them that they need to do their own testing. So this was just to help with the part of the community that can't really address it on a regular basis. If we give them, if we publish information that's not real positive, you gotta give something
You have to do
back for
something.
them to do, rather than just say, sorry, folks, you got bad
And
water.
what if the source and likely is runoff from farms? Big farms
Right.
that come down the hill.
Well, testing water is not going to determine where the source of contamination is. And so there are lots of possible sources for contamination.
Including people's own septic systems.
Right. And so just testing the water identifies clearly, which is important, is identifying a problem, but it doesn't necessarily solve it. One of the things that I would point out in the proposal, just as a note, is that the pay rate to pay somebody to do the work related to this, because it would be an additional hire, is at a rate higher than most of town staff makes.
Right.
And so I would push back a little bit on
Yeah.
that. As a cost amount, I'm wondering if the board wants to fund part of it, seeing as how we got an additional number of wells being tested that we weren't anticipating, courtesy of the Department of Health. But again, I think what we really do is, this is not a project, but this is quite frankly not a problem we can solve by ourselves. We need bigger players at the table helping us solve it in a more collective effort. Because if this is happening in Ulysses, it's most likely happening in Dryden. It's not happening in the town of Ithaca because they're all on public water. But this really will feed into the comp plan process, because now we should really be thinking about how to help protect our water sources and where public water should reasonably be supported to expand.
And the environmental impact statement should
Yes.
address it as well.
Let's see, what about mortgage tax? Did we bump that at all?
No, because we're not expecting that to be.
Or we
I
weren't
know for
expecting
this
it last
fall,
time
the
either?
data that Michelle got was that it's going to be very small amount of money. I can't predict about next year.
Right.
I don't have exact numbers on Ulysses. I know that in the village, there have only been between 7 and 9 houses that have sold so far this year.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
So sales are down.
Not the same as last year.
It was to hit last year's numbers, 7 more houses will need to sell. To hit last year's numbers. So now if mortgage rates, we're not gonna see, but if someone buys a house in November, we're not gonna see those funds until the next year. There's a
So-
delay on that too.
So what if you make a commitment to at least do planning related to this, seeking other resources and maybe more public information, and invest a smaller amount of money into making sure that this project gets started, understanding that there's a commitment to looking at it bigger picture with everything else that's going on. And you allocate some funds to be available to support it. So it sounds like to me, even if you're talking about providing resources to low income people, then you have to have a system for figuring that out. You know, to me, this is a not an insignificant administrative task for someone here at the town. I know you're talking about using CSI to do some of the oversight, but clearly the town would have to be involved too. So just, as an administrative person myself, I'm imagining the work that will go in to administering a program like this effectively. And, even just committing to get started on that and to analyze the data that you're waiting for, and to then make some decisions about how best to move forward. Seems to me that needs to happen before you can just decide you're going to implement a program like this, because you want to implement it in the most effective way.
We knew that.
Yep,
We had to
yep,
give you something.
yep.
It
So,
does seem to make the most sense based on what we.
I like the
Right,
idea of getting
right.
information out
but,
on ways of accessing testing.
yeah, and I get it, because you had
Ways to
limited information at the time you were trying to do this, but now at this juncture,
Yeah.
Maybe there's a way for the board to commit to moving forward to addressing what this is trying to do without committing the entire dollar amount.
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
no,
In this year.
It's a good idea.
I don't know.
Now,
That's
what
just
about
a
looking at,
suggestion.
the grants we get?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Looking at the grants we get.
Oh, absolutely. You have a great track record of getting money.
No,
I think we did.
I mean the other way, the money we're giving us to the library, to
Right.
all the local agencies.
That comes out of a different pot of funds, so that's coming out of the aid fund.
Right, but we have fund balance.
Um,
I mean, she said we can move money from the.
I'm sorry.
Well, we give out about $30,000 a year in grants to local.
Yes, I have that information here.
Right,
that
so
we
let's
could
look,
at.
I mean, that's disposable, that's discretionary money. We could look at it, I'm not saying we do anything. but we
No,
should
yes,
diligently
and
look
I
at
have
it.
the list here for you to look at.
So
I'm
let's
just
look at
saying that it's just a suggestion I had about how to move forward with this, commit some funds to it. But being more flexible about, how it gets accomplished, and the timing of it. And making sure we're utilizing all the state and other resources that are available. That's all.
Does,
Yeah, I see I'm sorry, I see there's still a question here about the administrative resource estimates and. Again, there was sort of a mid-process transition here and, I haven't even thought about that.
Gee.
But, from a budget officer perspective, so,
That's
but
right.
anyway.
Do people have the stomach for looking at these grants that we give?
We can look at everything.
Right, so
Yeah.
let's
Everything
look
should
at
be
it.
on the table.
right, but before we move on to that, does anybody have any thoughts on Blixie's
I think it's a
proposal?
good
I think
idea.
it's a good
It's a
idea.
good
It's a good
idea.
idea.
Good start.
Which is what?
To commit a certain amount of funds to this project at a minimum to have funds to do community outreach and information, just based on the reports and the results that you have to make sure people are well informed and to begin to put together a plan for that might take into consideration all that data that would allow the town to move forward with a bigger picture addressing of these issues, whether it's additional well testing or whether it's seeking specific funding that would do more than that. So,
Part of the plan that we are gonna be delivering will say to do more testing to get a better handle on it. I mean, the 25, they try to be strategic, picking the places that makes the
Yeah.
most sense, but
okay,
we really think we need more testing if we have an issue.
right,
that
so you
comes
need
up.
more data, basically, too.
And so we need to get that more data somehow.
Okay,
And without doing it this way, we don't have access to that. The town does not have access to
I
that
see.
personal information. So unless you do it this way, you're just like running blind
gotcha,
until
Gotcha.
everyone, go get your wells tested.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
and
yeah,
hope
So
they
that
do.
you don't get the DOH's results? You get the results, you just don't get
Oh,
who the
oh,
house
we get
had
it.
to.
A neutral, yeah, we get a like vague
Right.
reference and patterns, we don't get actual. access. The anonymity.
Anonymizing.
Aggregate data as
Yeah,
opposed to
right,
individual data, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
So in doing this, you feel that you'll have individual data that you can use more precisely to
Well,
assess the concern?
this would give us an avenue if we needed it. If we could determine that we need it. And also, we had over a couple hundred people, volunteering to have their wells tested. We took 50 other people.
And that was the Department of Health.
Through the Board of
that did
Health,
that.
yeah. Yeah. So it's, was a target, we'd liked to have done more testing, and that's why 100 came up. And you wanted to do more than that. Too, but the outreach is important as well, and we know we have to do that, because we made a commitment when we submitted the survey. That we would get back to everybody, and tell them this. Just feels kind of poor if you say, we know that there might be problems out here, and so we want to test and that. We want to get it done. They can't do it. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot that could be done though in the education and outreach, because that's not work that has already previously been done historically here. And,
Yeah.
and there are people who, if they know that it's recommended to do it, may undertake it doing this themselves, which would help solve their problems. I think getting good education out there is a really critical step that I don't think we should undervalue. The necessity of that, and I don't think you are, so my recommendation would
Right.
be to use, I think it's about 5,000 something, there's your budget. 125 for community outreach. My recommendation would be to allocate that funding to the committee. And use the results of the data that you have. Because it may end up giving us an idea of where some in general geographical areas where people are having problems, but there's also a lot of education and outreach that has been talked about is valuable to do to connect people to resources that already exist.
No, absolutely.
Giving us also time
Yeah.
to put together a plan to actually access funds to pay for everything else. There may even be a situation where Tompkins County could be engaged in every summer. I sit through shared services, as I know. You have other supervisors who do shared services meetings, and they're always looking for innovative ways, because the only way shared services gets paid for by the state is if you have an innovative project. So that's how we got the rapid response medical. That's part of the reason, because there's a shared service agreement between it's serving a broad stretch of communities in a creative way. I can see that there's value, and a lot of the municipalities in Tompkins County are probably in our similar situation. It's unfortunate, we're probably not an outlier.
We are, that's why, the Department of Health came back to do another one, because they were surprised that we had such a high level of E. coli.
Have they done this in all the other municipalities
They
though?
didn't, they've done, no, I don't know if they're immediately.
Okay,
around.
right,
They did Enfield, I think. They were fine, it's, but I don't know who else, I can't remember now off the top of my head who it was,
But they were alarmed at the levels we have.
yeah, right,
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I know Seneca County is going through and doing a huge effort on septic replacement, because septics are directly, that's a known thing of impacting
Are they
people's
getting
water
funding
quality.
for it, do you know?
I'm sorry?
Did they get funding for it?
And they're providing funding through pass-throughs to property owners to have their septics
Yeah,
replaced.
those, the
Oh,
community
okay.
development block grant program,
Okay.
will fund projects like that.
Yeah.
We actually have a project like that in Newfield right now too, where we're, helping
I heard about, yeah.
people replace or repair septic.
Just another side, we happen to have a problem with our water conditioning, our water softener, and Lowe's was in and they were talking to me. And I mentioned the water committee, and the testing that the Board of Health, they're going, they said, oh, we wonder what was going on, because we're getting whole lot of inquiries from Ulysses for ultraviolet systems. So already the word is, just the act of doing it is, I think, getting people engaged in understanding more about it, so. the
Which I think is
testing
great.
is good, yeah.
But I think we
Outreach
can
part is good.
expand some of that outreach so that maybe somebody who doesn't, whose neighbor wasn't.
Yeah, but the
tested.
testing is more concrete. The outreach is you gotta get people's attention, figure out a way to get them to pay attention to it, And that's one of the things we struggle with when we talk about it, is how do you get them? Where do you present it? When do
Comp plan.
you do it?
Well, I mean. I think, and not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but where your well is located and what source of water it's tapping into does have a direct correlation to, so I have a 12-foot shallow well. My water is coming directly from Teganic Creek.
Yeah.
Like, so when we moved in, we put in an ultraviolet system like immediately, because we knew our water wasn't going to be safe. Anything coming down that creek is coming into my house, right? And so you dig down 150 feet and you're tapping a different water source. It's going to be a potentially different water quality. I think helping educate people about what steps they can take and where they can go to even begin this process. It's not I genuinely think it's not an insignificant thing to do at all.
It also depends on when your well is
Yep.
drilled, and there's a lot of different variables that affect what might be in your water.
Yeah, and knowing that it's bad is obviously really critical. Having a solution to help people fix that is where community block grant funding can really make a difference.
And that might be the best,
Yeah. And I know there's a firm in Portland who's written grants for Tompkins County when they were doing a septic replacement. They wrote the grant. And they've written a lot of grants for those community development block grant programs. That's what they sort of specialize in.
right.
So there are people out there that you could then engage to help find money, basically, so it's, but you've got to have data too. So,
Say it's worth it.
right, so you
So
just
maybe
gotta justify,
100, that's just sufficient,
but
and then we'll be good.
I don't know.
Alright, well,
I don't know. But that was just a suggestion I had about how we could proceed that wouldn't
blow up, yeah.
put a kibosh on this, that we would move forward with it, but maybe a little more slowly.
Well, if we reduced in the budget this to 6,000, what kind of impact does that have on the B fund? Off the top of your head.
Quickly now, sorry. So 22, so I don't do math in my head anymore.
16,000.
So it puts us where, we were over what I recommended appropriating by about 8,000 in the B fund. So this would take us under that. It would appropriate most of the fund balance, but it would take us under by about 8. So, because if we add 16 back to the budget, right, that covers the 8 that were over appropriated and gives us
A little bit
Eight.
more.
a little,
Wiggle room.
but we're still appropriating most of our fund balance
Yeah.
to do but they are one-time projects too. I mean, in other words, they're not ongoing operational costs. So I would be more concerned if, like, for the comp plan, for
Right.
example, it's going to be done, right? And then it's not going to be there. And then in the future years, you might have funds that you can appropriate to do more with things like the water challenges that you have or other projects that need to be addressed. But right now, this is where you're at, and you can continue to look at your allocation of sales tax, which we are shifting a little bit in the direction of B fund and away from A fund, but to try to do it more gradually, so it's not a big hit in 1 year.
Right.
So,
And for mortgage tax, it's really hard for us to estimate because we won't receive our second payment for the year until after this budget is adopted.
Right.
So there may be a situation where with tax rates coming down, interest rates coming down. That we may end up finding that we're in a better place revenue wise earlier in the year. I don't know when the the community development block grant schedule is off the top of my head.
Well, and again, I'm not even sure what types of programs,
Right,
they're prioritizing or there's eligibility for, but you could certainly be talking to some of these grant writer folks to see what their thoughts are about what your challenges are, what our data shows, and what options there might be for outside funding.
I mean, I'm certainly not an expert, but if the Department of Health was concerned enough to come back and do another round, then that data by itself may be persuasive for a town outside village program. So it'd be good to have a little bit of wiggle room in terms of not over appropriating fund balance, so that if we got to a position where we could hire, say a firm who specializes in this to go after grant funds, that would be a good one-time use of funds to do it. But it would still give the committee some ability to start implementing at least educational pieces of the climate, not climate smart, thank you. The water source protection plan. So if with that tweak,
Tentatively, let's put that in. The 6 seconds. But I want to look at the allocation, the dispersion.
sure, we can switch to 8 fund.
I have one for you. Can I have one? Slow down in the back.
We did get the Meals on Wheels one. Remember?
We did, I just didn't
Update
update
it.
this particular piece of paper,
Yeah.
sorry.
Same amount.
Their application was for a little bit more than
It
that.
was, but
this
I
is what
didn't
was
change
recommended.
anything.
So
Yes,
that was last year.
yes,
Yes.
2250 was last year's,
Yeah.
and we did get an application, but it came in very late. So,
So why are we up the Trumansburg Farmers Market from 3 to 5?
That's what we paid, that's what we did last year.
No, I thought it was we did 3. We started with 3. I don't know when it went to 5.
I thought we went lower than they had requested.
Well, that may be, but we've traditionally, I think, did 3.
sorry, I'm just again, this is sort of challenging for me.
Here, let me go through that. I thought we did lower this. I actually thought in the budget itself we did, but
Yeah, I don't know if I have copies of all of the applications. That's the challenge.
All I know is the first year we did it, which was like 3 years ago, was 3,000.
my recommendation was that we held it flat from last year. There's a lot of holding flat in in the budget itself.
Yeah, let me look at my notes from our meetings for a moment. While you guys look this over.
After prom party?
Yeah. What's,
Yeah, that is.
That's a event that's held after the prom because it's designed that it's a very exciting event for high school seniors and juniors. And so you want them to stay someplace safe instead of going out and drinking and driving and getting into all sorts of mischief. So it's a chaperoned event.
They did at the conservatory a couple years ago. It was great, a lot of fun from what I was told. I was not there.
Who gets the $1,000? Chaperones?
No,
It's to help pay
for
for
the
the
event.
facility.
they've had it at,
events.
you know,
They've had
the
it at
bowling alley and.
Yeah, they run a venue, they pay for food and snacks
Right.
and there's,
And they have prizes and,
Yeah.
you know, incentives for kids to go to it. It's been going on for many, many
Yeah.
years.
All of last year's.
Did we fund them last year?
this
or
is
that new?
this is a new application request.
So this is
And-
$46,807. It's a good chunk of change to look at.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, but way up when we opened it
I
up.
think I have last
Yeah.
year's allocation.
This is 46,807.
Cause I didn't see, that's not detailed out in this way.
Yeah.
In the budget document.
Right.
So,
Well, I think I mean. I don't think we should do 5,000 for the farmer's market.
Yeah, it looks like it was
It
3,000.
was 3, that's what I said.
okay. And
Yeah.
you, do you wanna just mention what they were last year for each one, or do you wanna is it something?
The American Legion's the same. The CSI is a contract, so we,
Yep, that's just their rate
that is,
that we pay them, yeah.
That Meals on Wheels is the same.
Is
Yeah.
the same,
Yeah, about, looks like it was 2,500 last year.
So you wanna take it back to 2,500?
Lifelong was 3,000.
You have to, let's go back to 3,000.
can you just go through and see, just list what they were all were? So,
Legion, same. CSI, we already talked about that. Meals on Wheels, 2,250. Got about 2,500, Lifelong 3,000. Winterfest 1,000. After school program was 1,500. Conservatory was 5,000. Farmers market 3,000. Senior citizens 900. Historical Society 700. Library's kind of, that's a separate thing, right?
yeah, and it's the same, I believe, right?
that's
Mhm.
flat.
Thanks.
Summer
It's a separate thing.
The summer readings was definitely separate.
The summer reading is not in
This is
here.
not the summer reading program. This
Oh,
one's
it's not?
separate. No.
This is for our operations.
For operations.
Food Studies Institute got 1,000 last year, but no applications here. Food pantry 1,000 for 2023. Nursery school was 1,750. Fish and game was 900.
So what we up to?
That's not bad.
They requested 2,000 and I made the recommendation to drop to
Well, let's
1,500.
go back to 900. I don't see any need to do more there.
Well, what, I mean, aren't these supposed to be connected to a program or some deliverable to the?
So, I mean, we can go
Town?
through some of the fish and game is related to gun safety course. Trumansburg Community Nursery School, is related to, childcare tuition. Food pantries, food security, library. The Historical Society, we have traditionally funded it because that's a repository effectively of historical documents for the town of Ulysses in terms of non-governmental documents. Trumansburg Senior Citizens, Farmers Market, Conservatory, goes towards their overall project. I mean, remember they came and asked for a much larger chunk of funds earlier this year. After school program is also for tuition, subsidized childcare. Winterfest is obviously the event. Lifelong, one of the big things they do is tax preparation. Gadabout is transportation. Food Net Meals on Wheels is food delivery. CSI, we're under contract, and the American Legion, they do the Memorial Day.
I think they put flags on the.
Flags of the.
Yeah, this number has
Great
been
sites.
the same the entire time that I've been, which isn't particularly long, but since at least 2019.
Yeah, and I think we have most of them, but not all of them, their actual applications here.
For the ones that asked for more money, did they provide any? I know some of them, they had asked for more and we didn't give them as much as they had requested last year because of budgeting. But did they justify or provide any reason why they needed more money?
I'm just looking to see if I have the ones that are asking for more money here. shootings.
Outside of everything that's getting more expensive, which I do realize.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, some of them like this, the Fish and Game asked for more money, but we didn't give it to them, but they're talking about
You gave them more than.
adult introduction to.
Firearm
Scribe,
safety.
Yeah,
Um,
firearm instruction,
Well, I think we should certainly take back to where the levels. I don't think we should, given our situation, we shouldn't give any increases.
that would reduce Gadabout to 2,500, that would reduce Lifeline to 3,000, that would reduce the Farmers Market to 3,000.
Fish and Game to.
Fishing Game to 900.
Senior citizens stay the same.
Yeah.
We already
well,
are less
senior
than what we
citizens
wanted last
asked
year.
for less.
Right.
Yeah,
Some people asked for less, the Historical Society asked for less. The Food Studies Institute didn't ask for anything,
that's offset by the request from After Prom Party.
Right.
In terms of
right, true,
total budget.
true.
I mean, I think. I mean, it's gonna be hard. But it's a hard year. In terms of budgeting.
Well, those reductions, my calculations are, sure, would need to be voted by somebody else. That would be an additional savings of $4,100.
If we go back to what
If we adjust
last year.
Gadabout, Lifelong, Farm to Market.
Fish and Game,
Fishing Game.
that's 4,100.
What about after?
After prom party?
Yeah.
I mean, a party?
Is that really what the town?
Is that really-
Is that-
The best use of taxpayer funds?
I mean, it's a targeted group of people. But. You,
So I have 600, let's see,
I have. 500. 1,000. 500.
Where's the
This is
500?
a new
Where's
request
the
from
five-
After Prom
where's the
Party.
500?
Yeah.
It's new.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
programs.
Yeah, we're not reducing that amount here, though. They reduced it themselves.
They reduced it themselves, okay,
So we're not doing last
Right,
year's number,
gotcha.
we're keeping the lower number.
okay. That's probably my problem. Right. Oh, but they already reduced it. I see. That's my problem. Okay. I'm good.
I would think, I don't think we should do the After Prom. As a new request, I think.
Okay. That would reduce it to 5,100.
So we're down to 39,000 total.
No, 41,000. So we're saving 5,100 to the budget. Oh, yeah, yeah.
41,607.
41,607. And what fund was that on?
That's all in A,
Okay.
but it's split up in various categories depending on what it is. Some of it is for seniors, some of it is celebrations, some of it is, it's a variety, you know, I have to pick the category it comes out of. Based on what it is.
But it's a fund.
Does that
It's all A
offset
fund.
moving sales tax to be about?
We're not in the current proposal of reducing the allocation to 6,000.
We would not.
We wouldn't need to move any funds
I'm
for
sorry.
me. So
So. If we go down to the 6,000 for the water testing or the water source protection.
Right.
Plan committee from
Right.
22. That negates the need to remove sales
Correct.
tax from A to B. We're just
Correct.
looking at further ways to cut A.
Right,
And we also have
Or-
reviewed this.
what's that?
We needed to review this anyway as part of
Yeah,
the
you
budget
needed to
process.
review it anyway as part of the budget process. But the question is, because the B fund balance is in such dire straits, do you wanna move more money into B anyway? I don't know, I'm just saying that out loud.
We certainly move the money we just saved. in it.
I know.
Yeah, we do.
Sounds great.
I mean, just in terms of future planning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right
Yeah.
now, even if we cut back
Yeah.
this one funding request. You know, we're still using up the majority of the fund balance
In a
that
single
we
year.
have
Right.
available in a single year.
we definitely will. I know the library is sacrosanct, but. And that is a lot of money. I don't, I mean, I don't wanna cut the library,
Sorry.
but.
like I said, I mean, I think that happens, we will have a very active
Yeah,
town
I'm
board
not.
meeting.
Yeah.
So I'm just,
I mean, you're not gonna get the same kind of pushback for like the after Brown
Right.
party, but the library,
Yeah, no.
yeah.
There's a whole bunch of services that it provides, which is reading.
I don't know how you feel about the A to B, my suggestion.
I think it makes
Really
sense.
Talk about it.
No, I think it makes sense. I worry about depleting fund balance so quickly.
Yes,
So I think this is a very reasonable solution.
and if we're creating savings, then it makes sense that maybe we put that savings in a place that needs it. That's
I do agree. My only other comment was, on the conservatory. Oh, that's one of our higher requests here. And they've been raising a lot of money.
Yeah, do they say, yeah.
I mean, they've raised a ton of money.
Well, for their capital campaign, they
Right.
met their goals, so.
Right.
And now they're still fundraising for additional, amenities, I guess you could.
Well, and I mean, my understanding is that historically, the support helps basically helps
Operations.
operations. Yeah,
Does the village contribute to the conservatory?
I don't know.
I don't know.
but their taxpayers do when we spend their,
We spend that, right.
they fund money.
Yeah,
They are.
I mean,
through
it's the conservatory, it's a different group of people,
Right.
supports a different group of
multi-ages.
people.
Yeah,
Are we
Variety.
still behind Winterfest?
Winterfest still hasn't, I mean, this is what they've asked for.
I mean, we're still going to support Winterfest.
I think
With
it's
raising.
personally a great experience for those who go. of all ages. Go see, what's his name? Juggle,
he'll be.
Hilby. The juggler. He says the same jokes every year. but they're
So
still
we're good
funny.
on this now?
I mean, I am, but I don't know if anybody else feels traumatized going through the process, but hopefully Blixie doesn't.
Oh, I don't feel traumatized.
If I thought you were feeling traumatized, I wouldn't certainly make a joke about it, so. That's good. Yeah.
Well, I feel better about, yeah. In general.
So I just want to be clear what we've agreed
Yeah,
to do. So I think I have the list of,
why don't you reread it so we're all on the same.
Yeah.
page?
so for the community funding requests, Gadabout is going to be 2,500 from 3,000. Lifelong is going to be 3,000 from the 4,000 they requested. We're reducing the farmer's market to 3,000 from the 5,000 they requested. And we're reducing the fish and game back to 900, which was last year's number, from the 2,000 that they requested.
Right,
And we're not funding the after prom party.
correct.
And in the B fund, we've agreed to dedicate $6,000 towards the beginning of the project that's laid out here
Right.
to at least get public information and some initial work done
Yeah,
on this, right?
So will that be B 87? 8790?
Let me just look at that.
General natural resources.
Yes, and I would leave it in this separate category. I know I labeled it water testing just for lack of having a better, but I can, just keep track of those funds separately so that we know that it's dedicated to the committee
Right,
as
Right.
opposed to something else.
Yeah.
Right? But yes, that's where I would put that. And the other money there, I'm trying to remember what that. Is for, but I don't remember off the top of my head. That's just the normal.
is that the
operational
CSI,
costs.
Community Science Institute?
Doesn't match with the number here.
No, cause that's all.
That's CSI somewhere else.
I'd have to go look at that more specifically.
CSI is under stream research
Uh,
in A.
In A,
Yes, it's an A. Let me just look to see what's in that. Here it is. It is. The BLWIO,
oh,
the Stormwater Coalition dues. Tree Committee and I don't know, this Sustainability Committee, CSAC. So it's though, all of those things make up that number.
okay.
So it's a variety.
Which line are you looking at?
This is the general natural resources in the B fund.
Eight seven nine zero.
8790.
So how's everybody feeling?
Okay.
Yeah.
Were there other funds that we still had to cover?
We covered all the other ones.
We did.
We did.
Okay.
Unless anything changed.
No, anything that changed, I already went over with you, there's very few things that. Information that changed to the best of my knowledge, so.
So are people feeling comfortable? If so, Lexi can step away and make the amendments to the resolution of adoption. And we can set a public hearing at the meeting on the 22nd. While we take care, she would have to step away to,
I would go in and actually implement all the changes we just talked about.
But once we do this, we can't change them, we can't do any change
Yeah,
Until after the public.
till after,
till after the
oh, we
public.
can after the public hearing.
That is correct. So what you'd be doing is approving the preliminary
Right,
budget,
yeah.
So this turns into the preliminary.
right,
That goes
although,
to public comment.
and that goes
Public
public
hearing,
comment,
and then we have
yeah.
an opportunity to take into account any public
Right.
comments, any
Yeah.
changes or anything that we've had. And then if finalized, it is finalized.
That's correct.
All right.
So after the public hearing, you can still make changes to the
Right.
preliminary budget
Right.
before it's adopted.
Right.
So tonight, I'm just gonna go rerun these numbers. I'm not gonna create a new preliminary budget document because I need more time for that. But I'll finish that resolution that lays out what all the changes are.
at least not the rate and all of that.
Okay,
And also the changes that we made to what was already presented originally last meeting.
Correct.
okay.
Okay,
All right, I'll go work on that. Okay, so that resolution that I started amending in SharePoint, can I continue to work on that one?
Yeah.
Or-
and then could you just print copies for us of it?
can.
Thank you. I think it'd be easier
Or I
if you
can
just
try.
send it to the printer. Copies just of the resolution.
Thanks, Lexi.
While we're doing that, I think we'll be able to go through, the other business, would the board prefer, I have the documents to go through the local laws and consider adoption. Would you prefer waiting till the next town board meeting for that, or we can do it right now? What's the sentiment? I do have
I feel
another,
like we can do it now.
okay, sounds good.
I don't know what anybody else.
And we're already waiting.
Just do it.
Okay,
Yeah, they're just signs and park.
yes.
Yeah,
But we have to go through the seeker review, when. The seeker, this will be the seeker review related to the Board of Zoning Appeals zoning code amendment. This review, declares us to be lead agency, so I'm just gonna read through these very quickly. I see no impact, related to it. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use or zoning regulations? If you disagree with no, please type up. I'm just gonna read through them quickly. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the use of land? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of the critical environmental area Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkability? Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies, public or private wastewater treatment utilities? Will the proposed action impair the quality or character of important historical, archaeological, or architectural or aesthetic resources? Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? Will the proposed action result in an increase in a potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? Does anybody see anything other than a no related to that?
no,
Okay, so we have a resolution for determination of a negative. This finds that it's the proposed action is an unlisted action in codes. It goes through and says, whereas it does not do all those things that I just led. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby makes a negative declaration of environmental significance in coordination with the various laws set forth. I'll move that. Is there a second? Good. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And then you can turn to the email printed out that where Carissa embedded the correct portions of zoning code. And so what this was, she didn't update the zoning code, I'm sorry. What she updated is when we had there were public information components related to it. So this basically says that we went through the process of holding a public hearing. We posted as necessary. We've done our due diligence. The Department of Planning and Sustainability of Tompkins County submitted their response. So we received that. That was in the packet. The states that they determine the action will have no significant countywide or inter-community impact. The Board of Zoning have reviewed the proposal and they agreed via memo that this is a good idea. We had a public hearing, et cetera, et cetera. Ignore the stuff at the bottom because nobody has moved a second of this yet. But short of that, the text is the correct text. And this was also posted on the website. I will move this. Is there a second?
Second.
There you go, Chris.
you're making her job easier.
Which is this you're moving?
This is this will be resolution 152 of 2024, approving the Board of Zoning Code Appeals, zoning code amendment.
Okay.
Be 153 now.
It's 153 now.
This,
So
I think.
local, it's gonna be
You
local.
want
law.
That's not it.
What's in here?
So it's local law 3. Okay. Yeah, it says in there, that's correct in there, local law 3, and you said it's resolution 153.
Yep.
Okay. So. Okay,
Like that.
Yeah.
so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the reasonableness of the signage law for ZCA? Okay, call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And thank you. And then the next item up is related to parks. Park zone. And this allows, as I stated before, this allows park to be an allowed use in a park zone. Park and recreation zone. And the seeker, we'll go through the seeker process again. I'm not gonna read all the whereases because this reflects that that we had a public meeting today, October 28th. And we reviewed the environmental assessment form. Sorry?
Like you said, October 20th.
No, October 8th.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's in the resolution, it's October 8th. Basically, all the environmental impacts that I read for the last one would be the same we would consider for this. Did anybody think that this change impacts those things?
No,
But I had a question. There was a nuance in the planning board's letter that talked about only public spaces. Do we have any park designations that are in private spaces?
Jacksonville Community Park is open to the public, but it's privately owned.
That's it, the others,
I would have to go through all the different ones.
Salem Preserve is park.
right,
But that's public.
yeah, that's we own.
yeah,
You were worried about private ownership.
Because somebody could call it a park and do extraordinary things, we felt there needed to be some control over it.
Well, they would have to be in a zone that was created as a park in the first place, though, and the town board would have to make changes to the
Right.
existing zoning code or the existing zoning about where our parks are designated.
Carl said it.
We were,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think we
Right.
had a good understanding
So
of
that he
that,
wrote,
That's what he
because I
wrote.
asked him before.
Yeah,
but that's what we were worried about. So,
Right, this isn't
yeah,
changing
park.
what's designated as a
Right.
park zone. This is recognizing we have existing park zones and it makes sense for parks to be an identified allowed use in the park zone, because the park zones were created because there were existing parks there.
And there's only a couple.
Smith Woods is also one of them.
That's private.
Yeah, it's privately owned.
Smith Woods is privately
It's
owned.
owned by PRI Institute, yeah.
Right,
We used to own it. Town got rid of owning it under me. But anyway, it was donated to the town.
I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yes.
but I have additional information
Oh.
that I just got.
additional information.
Yeah, no, when I went to go in and make these changes, I realized that I think you already directed me to reduce some of these.
I thought I had, but
And this was notes that I had, but the numbers that feed into the budget are already allocated out into different places, like programs for the aging, celebrations. And so the only ones that I can reduce, because they were already reduced, I apologize, are Gadabout, $500, the prom party, $1,000, and the fishing game, $100. So the savings of all of the numbers that you approved is $1,600,
Well, that's no
not
fun.
$5,100, because
Oh,
those
boy.
changes were already made. So I apologize because I printed this thinking it was current. But these were notes from when the
We want
requests
to
were
reduce
first
the
made.
farmer's market back to 3.
I had, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so
Where the
lifelong, Caitlin had already reduced
I thought I had
it.
it.
Farmer's market, she'd already asked me to reduce those numbers. And I had plugged them into the budget in the line
Directly.
where it goes.
Okay,
Mm,
So I apologize for
right.
that. I
Right.
should double check
No,
that.
no worries.
So,
So,
but I just needed to tell you right now
Yeah.
that we don't have $5,100 of savings, we have
1,600.
$1,600. For the amount of money that is, I could still move it over to B,
Yeah, move it.
okay? Sorry.
Always get cheaper on that road, yeah. We have a resolution on the table.
I'm gonna leave and I'll bring the other resolution, I just wanted you to know that I paid the thing.
It's for budgeting so much.
All good. Okay, I don't remember, Carissa, do we have a motion? I know I moved this.
I don't think we did seeker.
We went through the seeker. Oh, I was just asking.
oh,
if
you
anybody
asked
had
if we had any,
Any concerns
Yes.
about any of it?
No.
So,
no,
okay, so I will move, so this is listed, it'll be an unlisted action. It does not cause significant change in use of land. We went through the seeker process, resolved that the town board hereby makes a negative determination of environmental significance in accordance with the appropriate laws. So I'm gonna move this. Is there a second?
second,
Any further discussion?
This is the park one?
Yeah,
This is the park seeker.
Okay.
Okay, no further discussion, then all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries, thank you. And then we move on to the actual adoption. This would be resolution 155, correct,
Yeah.
Marissa? And it would be local law number 4 for the year. We had a public hearing today. It was reviewed by the Department of Planning and Sustainability for Tompkins County. And they determined, that was in the packet, they determined that the proposed action will not have a significant countywide or inter-community impact. It was reviewed by the planning board. And the planning board sent a memo that was provided in your packet as well. They were in support of it. We held our public hearing.
which
And
resolution are you talking about?
so this is the park resolution. So
What's the number of the resolution?
the resolution will be, it's listed right here as 153. It's gonna be 155.
The 155 is the re-levy of the delinquent waiver.
Yeah, no, so, yeah, this is the one that
Everybody gets
Carissa
moved up.
did it by email. So where's the doc? It looks like this. This is the email.
Right.
So it's embedded in here. So the one we're doing right now, if you want to follow along here, and Carissa just filled in the blank. It's right here. Oh, sorry,
Okay.
I'm ruining your packet. Here you go.
Alright.
It's right there.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is really 155.
Yes. It's really 155.
And now it's 153.
Who's on first?
Yeah,
Mhm.
what's on second?
I don't know.
Okay, we're all confused. Okay, so the vote will be, I moved it. Was there a second? I moved this resolution. Is there a second? Or did we
So
already have? a
we just
second?
did the seeker, now we're doing the law.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now we're doing the law. So I walked
Yeah.
us through what we did on that. This is the law for
The law says.
what the law says. And this law is going to allow parks in the
Park zone.
existing park recreation zone as an allowed use rather than a special permit. Okay, so I'm gonna move that. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay. I have more pages on this desk than I ever want ever again. Moving on, to the first item of new business. This will be the re-levying of, delinquent water fees. This is what we pass every year. Customers were notified, on August 6th that they can make payments on delinquent amounts. Through September 30th, delinquent amount is, something, a bill that hasn't been paid in at least 60 calendar days. And so the outstanding, delinquent water charges in the amount of,
There's a new one, 6,237.49.
so delinquent amount of $6,237.49 to the 2025 town and county tax rolls. And then that's what we're voting on, is levying those. The motion, so there's a motion, is there a second? I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And then the final piece of material related to this is we have the town received a NYSERDA grant, I'm sorry, a NYSERDA award for $50,000. And many thanks to Roxanne in particular for spearheading this effort and working on it very diligently to help let's go through the motion to collect the necessary point. So thank you to Roxanne, who's I'm sorry to not be able to recognize her right here in person, but I really appreciate everything she's done to facilitate this process to get the money and working with the Conservation and Sustainability Committee. So this award is for $50,000. The contract has been reviewed and approved by the town attorney. This gives us the funds available to go out and purchase an electric vehicle. And so that's already in process to identify through the list how we can do that. Purchase one. So the idea is it has to be, the project period needs to be completed by April 15th of 2027. But our intention is to do that probably late, depending on how everything goes. Realistically, early 2025. Roxanne and I and the people from NYSERDA met a week and a half ago to go over this document, and that was the timeline that we discussed. So, any questions? So you know, you didn't see a contract like this for the $10,000 we received because there's no contract for that. They just give it to you because it's such a smaller threshold amount. But at $50,000, we have to go through a contract process. So you'd be approving me to sign this contract. And so the resolution says that I can sign the contract, that we're accepting the funds, and that Krista will submit it.
I'll move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I,
That brings us to upcoming events. Something that's not actually on the schedule, but is happening here tomorrow is from 5:30 to 6:30. There's going to be a public information session. Barton LaJudas, who's the engineering firm we're using for the Curry Road culvert. Curry Road Bridge will be a bridge by the time we're done. They are doing a public presentation here in Town Hall tomorrow at 5:30. And they're gonna show us the preliminary design of the. And so we invited you guys sent out letters. Yep. I talked to one of the neighbors myself who approached me about the project. So hopefully people will come and provide any feedback. We don't have, unlike the Cemetery Bridge project, there's not a lot of design, there's no design flexibility really. It's a very utilitarian, dropped in segments kind of bridge.
Did we vote on this $37,000
For what?
for the comprehensive plan?
That's all part of the budget, so we haven't voted on the budget yet.
Okay. We don't do that separately.
No, I just provided that as information from the comp plan steering committee and from Nate.
Since Rich brought that up on this. Can you guys put Ann's name underneath that? You have no clue that that's, if I'm assuming that's Ann's signature. 2 circles and a hump.
Sure.
I mean, just for historical
Yeah, yeah.
purposes.
Well, did we all agree on that yet? That it should go in the budget?
I didn't really,
I mean, if it's gonna.
this
we
doesn't
should-
set well with me that
we should
that's what
discuss
MRB
that.
did.
And we discussed that as if it were a fait accompli that we were gonna do it. But maybe we take a straw poll as to people want to put that in or not,
What?
rather than holding up the whole budget vote of there's disagreement about that, we should maybe take a vote on it separately.
You want to do it now?
Well, I mean, we can't vote on it separately,
No.
like from a practical purpose. It's either in the budget or it's not. I mean, the way I'm looking at it is we are where we are. The DEC recommends it. Our attorney recommends it. Our planner recommends it. So,
But they
And I
don't,
think-
they don't pay for it though.
No, but I think so I looked back at the contract, the RQ responses that were provided. And one of the reasons why we went with MRB, if I recall correctly, was they had the schedule. And their costs was lower. They came in $40,000 lower than the other company.
Right,
so
so
we,
now it brings them up to parity.
They're pretty much on par now.
they said $70,000.
Yeah,
Right.
so whether or not I mean, we probably should have been asking more questions specifically about the EIS at the time. But I think we were also looking at trying to continue to move forward through the comp plan process and looking at the costing. So. And that's just my interpretation going back, when I looked at the numbers. This does bring MRB a little bit higher than the other firm.
Well, the other firm you said was 40,000, this would be 37.
It was 110.
What?
110 with the other firm's company price was $110,000.
What's everything?
I thought this was adding 37 to get to 125, so I guess it was $30,000 less. I'm not doing math well in my head.
Can we go over that again?
Okay, so. Right now, MRB is looking at $125,000, right?
Right, the other
And the
because it went-
EIS was 37,000.
But that's included in the 125, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, so I'm just backing out.
Oh,
But the other group had the AIS in it.
Yes,
For one.
for 110.
So they're 15,000 higher now.
Now, yes, but at the
So-
time they weren't.
Well, they weren't because we didn't have a full proposal. It seems a little weird.
It's not uncommon for things to change. I think going through what we just did with the part 2 on the local laws, I highly doubt that we could go through that same checklist with the comp plan and not find something that would have a significant adverse effect that would then trigger an EIS. So even if we had gone through with the MRB FEAF, which is the full form. It's a 7-page form that you fill out. It answers all these questions about project-specific information that really don't apply to planning documents like the comp plan. There's about 3 questions that will be answered. The other ones, whether or not the project would increase air emissions, whether or not the proposed action would have an impact on wetlands, are very high level, like you can't really answer that when you're looking at a comp plan. So if we had completed the FEAF, and we sat down to fill out that checklist in a meeting, I don't think we could have I don't think we can get through it without finding significant adverse impact on one of those items that would then trigger the EIS. So I think we would need it anyways.
But it seems to me, I mean, and I wasn't part of this, but if MRB is so close to the approval of the contract, comes up with another 37,000.
No, that's not what
how it
happened.
happened.
The contract has been signed for months.
And we went to them and asked, if you were gonna do a full EIS, how much would it cost?
Right,
So we
'Cause we could
approached
go
them,
through
they
the
didn't come back to us
process.
and say, oh, now you owe us this.
Right.
They did not approach this, this
But-
was us coming to them.
aren't they supposed to be like experts in this so that they should know? You know, that we are gonna need,
You don't,
A
you're not
GEI.
required to do it, it's recommended to do it because there's a high likelihood increasingly that it's going to trigger necessity of a full one, but it's not required.
right, but it seems like they should have made us aware of that.
yeah,
In the quote, as a part of the quote,
It says that the FE included an FEAF,
an FEAF, but not the other one.
not the GEIS.
Right.
You like all these acronyms?
I hate them.
No, I believe, I don't have the document in front of me and my phone's about to die, so I can't pull it up, but I thought there was some clarifications, but I could be wrong.
They didn't, it's not like they said they were gonna quote, they were gonna do a full GIS or full GEIS.
I think when,
And
it-
then-
when it was presented to us, who to vote, who to pick. This was not an apples to apples comparison.
It wasn't an apples to apples comparison on a lot of items.
Yeah, exactly.
There wasn't just this. This is what we're talking about now because it has an effect on the budget. So it makes sense, but there's a lot of other items that weren't. The 2 applicants were not apples to apples comparable,
And
unfortunately.
it was almost, I mean, it was what? The final vote was overwhelmingly in favor of MRB
For a variety of
for a variety
reasons.
of reasons, not just exclusively on
Right.
money.
No, there's accessibility to different,
Yeah,
there's a lot of different reasons. I don't know whether there's an opportunity to go back and talk to MRB again. Or if this third, I wasn't at the meeting on Wednesday, so I apologize, I'm not coming up with direct firsthand
Well,
knowledge.
they're coming in $15,000 more than the other.
Yes,
That's a substantial amount of money that we didn't know when we voted on it, so I feel. Oh, but we didn't have all the information. No, we didn't have all the information.
But I think that's true in a lot of situations. We were presented with these packets or large packets and the committee did a thorough, like, we did interviews, we did multiple meetings. Like, it was not an inconsiderable amount of time in reviewing the process. And so they made a recommendation based on their interpretation and understanding the situation. It was brought to the town board. Town board was presented with both full packets. And I mean, it is where it is. I mean, I'm not saying don't have hard feelings, don't think that it's unfair. I don't disagree with any of that, but we now are where we are.
I understand.
So, I mean, our alternative is here to say that, I mean, I don't know what the alternative is. I think if we went to, we can't realistically hire
We go
another
to somebody
firm.
else.
The alternative is we don't do the 37,000 and
there's a good chance we're gonna need it.
Right.
So it's whether we include it in the budget now,
yeah.
or we have a contingency next year for $37,000. That we're gonna have to deal with next year in budget modifications. Cause I really, just while Caitlin was listening through that list, I was thinking about it, and I don't see how. We're gonna not find a significant adverse impact
Well,
with
that
one
was
of those
just a
items.
sign and a.
No, I know
Those
that for the
change.
sign, but we're gonna have to go through that same exact list,
Mhm.
once we have the draft. Comp plan.
Mhm.
And we're gonna have the FEAF completed, addressing the information in the comp plan. That is the exact form that we need to go through to confirm, to determine whether there's a negative or a positive declaration of potential or significant adverse impact, environmental impact. If any of those items come back as yes, we're automatically kicked into the EIS. And at that point, it's probably gonna be June.
But from I can't. But as Mary said, they're experts. Why didn't MRB know that? What you just said is something they should know off the top of their, like,
I mean, you know.
God, you know it.
That's what I do.
No, you know it,
Well,
but.
Actually, it's not what I do.
No, but
It's
what-
not what I do. I
no.
don't plan. I'm not a
Right,
planner.
no, but when it came up, that omission should have been like red lights. If this is, we're gonna need it, why isn't it in their proposal? I'm just kind of befuddled.
Well, I think part of it, I would be really honest to say, I think part of it is because the town didn't do this for the last comp plan. And historical memory of not having to do this for the last comp plan may be skewing what has to be done under the current. And the reality is that the regulations and the likelihood of this being triggering, of the comp plan triggering a necessity for this review is very high. Not to mention, we can shoehorn in projects we know we are going to tackle in the next 10 years.
I don't disagree with
Yeah.
that. I'm a little upset with MRB for not making this as a
I don't
conversation.
disagree. I don't disagree. And in fact, I would also say that. No, actually, I'm not gonna go into that right now. I'm sorry. I don't disagree with you on that. At this point, I was just trying to make what is the most prudent financial decision. That for the place of where we are, because we just have to live with where we are right now. We're under a signed contract. The town board made its decision.
Yeah, no,
So-
I got all that.
Yeah, so I think from that perspective, I don't disagree with you, and it's frankly, and I can talk to you, I mean, we can talk one-on-one about a possible method to fix this in the future to some degree. But we are now at the place where we have to make a decision of funding. And I've said my piece of that I think it's financially prudent, so even if it's not fun financially.
I guess I'd like to hear that of MRB's mouth, why they didn't include it. And they should give us a discount.
Mhm.
They should give us a discount. Cause we bought this, not with, we're late people. They're the experts. We rely on them.
So I would actually make a recommendation that either you and I or you and Liz sit down and have an actual direct conversation with them.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with doing it.
Cause I think you need to be there and well, either one of the two of us needs to be there, given your professional experience in my role, so.
Okay.
And see if we can negotiate a better price,
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, we need to. Well, I think we need to plan to pay for something.
I feel better if they gave us a.
$15,000
Yeah,
discount.
15,000 to make it even with the other group.
Can give them a target.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So how about we do this? We leave it in the preliminary budget. Well, we leave it in what we adopt as a preliminary budget. Right? Or no, tentative. budget.
No,
Preliminary.
Preliminary, okay, sorry. You're looking at me like I was wrong. I'm like, it's gonna go into the.
I'm
preliminary
sorry, I
budget.
was still thinking about.
And if we can get that meeting scheduled, which I have every confidence we could before the public hearing. And our next meeting, we can adjust it downwards if we can negotiate better.
Yeah.
What are we speaking?
$37,000.
Oh, okay.
That would be, because I don't want the entire budget process to be held up.
But I agree, we should get it done.
Yeah,
I mean, it's still 22,000, that's a lot of money.
yeah. Well, at least it's not 37. I mean, for all the business
I
we
mean, if
give them,
we, the
for
20,
all the business we give them. It's nothing for them, 15 grand to lower it to that.
I mean, in terms of if we get them to lower it, it's still $22,000 more. I mean, that would have been the other firm anyways, so. Consultants always come back for money. There's always change.
All right,
Okay, so I can set up a
Yeah.
meeting, okay.
So I have this, I updated this resolution draft to include all of the changes. I'm having a little trouble discerning the differences. This resolution breaks out the increase in the tax levy between the rate for residents outside the village and for village residents, and I didn't look at this earlier and I'm having trouble interpreting those details
Okay,
to make sure that I have it correct in the resolution. This is kind of new to me.
okay,
So I know that the levy overall is going up 5%, which I put in here. But I'm not sure how to,
that is language that is not, we are not by statute required to include that, I believe, but I'm not sure.
so if we want to just amend this to say a 5% increase in the total tax levy and leave it at that. I know that's accurate, but I would have to understand this better.
but since we just changed some things, wouldn't that 5% change a bit?
No, it doesn't change at all, because nothing we changed the tax levy.
Okay,
It just moved around sales tax and how much fund balance we were
but we
appropriating.
cut another $1,600 in the gift.
Yes, but then we offset it by
But we
moving
moved it.
sales tax
We moved
revenue.
sales tax revenue over to the.
We
food
reduced
fund.
expenses and
Sorry,
revenue.
everybody's tired, so. But what I did though was, so here's the resolution. Which outlines all the changes that have been made since the tentative budget was presented. For you guys and one. Those are I have 14 items in red.
Nice.
Oh.
See if I can be awake enough to do it.
So they're the things that I already talked about and the things that we just did tonight. So lowering liability insurance, increasing health insurance, increasing revenue from just the court.
I
And
thought you said
then,
the health insurance was gonna be more than 1,000. I thought you said something like 4,000 or 5,000.
right, but 1,000 in the A fund,
Oh, okay.
2,500 in DA
Very
and
good.
22,000 in DB.
Good.
And to pay for that I just changed appropriated fund balance in each of those funds. I didn't
Right.
change anything else. So that's also listed there.
Good.
And then the decrease in the programs for the aging, the culture and community funding, that total 1,600 that I just explained to you a little bit ago. Moving the sales tax. What this does though is that I also printed out an updated fund balance sheet for you to look at, because this is where you see the change.
Right,
In the B fund, where we're not taking it down so close
right.
to, you know, the our limit on our side.
No, you're good.
Those two little guys, here's this for you. Those two below. That's yours.
Sorry.
So where you really see the change is in the B fund where, we're not down to 35% or 36%, we're at 42%. So, of our goals, so we still have a little fund balance there for future projects, for future years, or to smooth
Right.
changes in costs or whatever. I also printed out just for your reference, because this is what you're approving as a preliminary budget. This summary, budget summary, so you have it as a document. For where we are right now. And I also reprinted this tax rate sheet, although it didn't change. I just thought it would be important to highlight, these are sort of the critical elements, of what you're approving in the preliminary budget.
These are like old Nancy Zalen meetings.
What?
These are like old Nancy Zalen meetings.
This is last year.
Here you go.
We did 52 meetings in 2020, 52 meetings, think about that, and then think about, you're just staying late this week. But last year we started actually at 6, this meeting at 6 o'clock, just.
So this tax rate, this tax sheet summary did not change. It's the same as what you've been looking at, right? But, it's just, we just move things around a little bit. Okay. So that is the culmination of all these changes. So you made an amendment to the sheet.
So I did, so I'm recommending the resolved. The first resolved is, put a period, or I'm sorry, put a comma after tax levy in the second line. And then cross out everything other until we get to and be it further resolved,
Okay,
because these things are actually reflected in the budget as it's being
yes,
adopted, so this is redundant.
yeah, and it'll be in the preliminary budget document for everybody to see.
Right.
That should say 2025. Okay, it is.
Yeah, I changed the dates when I got it.
Okay. What do we
So
do?
this would schedule our public hearing for October 22nd at 7 p.m. On the preliminary budget. I will move this. There's a second. Discuss it further if needed.
Second,
Thank you. Any further discussions on the moving to the preliminary budget for 2025? Okay, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lexi.
Thanks, Lucy.
Yes, thank you, Lexi.
Quick work.
Okay. Cause it's all a matter of
Can't
perspective.
go anywhere yet, but quickly. We're gonna
Okay,
do-
I'll hang out.
The next
Fine.
item up was, the meeting minutes, and Mary was not in attendance for that meeting.
yes, you have to take out all my votes and
And that was for, did you catch anything else, Mary, that you saw?
No.
Okay, and that was for the, meeting on the 10th of September. I will move those minutes, as amended.
the 24.
I'm sorry, yes, 24.
20
Sorry,
24.
Yeah.
thank you. I was looking at the first meeting ever. Okay. Try again. I will move the minutes as amended for September 24th, 2024.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
And then, I don't have any board notifications. We did have budget modifications. Because Lexi is still here, unable to leave her seat. If you had any questions.
Oh, yeah.
Name payment state aid. Moving money around to reflect current
Sure.
spending.
Reclassifying stuff and reflecting increased activity in water.
Anybody have any questions on that? No. Okay, I will. Did you have a question, Michael?
No, making sure tomorrow's meetings up there. So. Just thinking out loud.
No problem, this time of night, it's very understandable. So I will move the budget modifications as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
We have, audited claims. I don't have that resolution. Chris sent it out in front of me. Is it? The voucher resolution. I will move the resolution resolved that the town board approves payment for the following audited claims. Vouchers 471 to 513 and A through SW funds totaling $50,452.50. And voucher number 4 in the HA fund for $5,753.07. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussions or questions on the vouchers? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. And that brings us back to privilege of the floor.
I do have one question.
Sure.
On the 37th, on the EIS money. When that is defined, do you give them a set of projects that you want them to do the evaluation on, the environmental?
It's whatever's in the comp plan is evaluated. So the document, the comp plan of document is looked at in its totality. And if the comp plan has adopted other projects as well, such as the non-point source, culvert. But that's
So
the
the
report.
content would specifically say you need to upgrade X number.
Yes.
Okay.
It
But
can
it also-
adopt that report, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna talk further, so you can say something, sorry.
No, you
Yeah. Okay, I was just wondering how they came up, so it's.
With
so
that
they don't
number.
even- Yeah.
Yeah.
How-
You
how
know,
would
what
you
if there
start
aren't
to-
any projects?
So then
So
they-
GEIS,
they-
but the
Not just
GEIS
projects, though.
looks, so the GEIS is based off the comp plan itself. So it's looking at what the proposed recommendations for housing will be, what the proposed recommendations for environmental protection, what the proposed recommendations for agricultural utility upgrades and so forth.
Water lines.
We'll cover all the proposed recommendations, goals. And in those goals, there could be specific projects identified. Such as the Waterberg culvert or.
But they have to do it on a specific.
No,
project.
not for GEIS. GEIS is look at the overall encompassing. Collection of potential projects and the
G is
comp plan,
generic.
right, G is generic.
Generic, right.
So it's very specific. Most people, you can't do GISs other than for planning documents like a comp
Yeah,
plan
right.
or a transportation master plan.
Yeah,
And
so
so
I guess I'm struggling because of the planning, you know.
So
for
then,
Planning.
so then what would happen is we, in the comp plan and in the seeker neg deck, we could set parameters for culverts that maybe not were identified, but that meet this criteria such as crossing class C or D streams. Streams or crossings that are less than 100 square or linear feet in length could follow under the GEIS. But if you have projects of crossing water streams of CTS or above, BA or greater than 100 square feet or linear feet, you have to do a supplemental EIS or FEAF. So then the planning department would be reviewing that project specific
and this only,
information.
I'm just surprised it's that specific that they'd have some need to get around. That's the thing that I didn't see in the last comp plan, so that's what.
It wasn't, and but there is,
Yeah.
I know that, I mean, the GEIS have been around for years. I was reading one earlier that was 2005.
Yeah,
well,
It just wasn't for some reason done the first time around, and I wasn't part of that group, so I can't say why.
well, no, it's on everything about if you think water, if the comp plan comes back and says. We know we have water quality issues in this segment of the town and are supporting the increase of public water lines. or in the Jacksonville hamlet, or whatever it is, that triggers environmental review. The reality is, in 2009, communities were not diligently doing this, and what they've learned, and one of the reasons the DEC and attorneys are recommending doing it, is because those comp plans are used as a fundamental justification for the community moving forward on public projects. And if you turn around and say, well, this is we're gonna do this, and we're gonna use that as a justification, and then we're gonna go through our checklist and only do internally part one of seeker, and everything's fine. Where do you think where do you think people are getting challenged legally on development projects, public and private? It's always environmental. That slows down all sorts of things. This doesn't negate the necessity for private individuals who come to the planning board for site plan approval to have to go through environmental review.
Right.
This is
exactly,
only for
yeah.
town initiated, government initiated
Right.
activities.
Where you would have to do the
Right.
EIS to begin with, I get that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the
So-
fact, really the fact too, that we have so many known identified needs for infrastructure replacement that we can shoehorn in this. Honestly, I want every sound supervisor after me for the next 10 years to come high five us for saving them money, because at most they're gonna have to do an addendum, right? They're not going to have to go back to square one and spend a bunch of money. So
Hopefully
that's,
they don't change the environmental rules that much.
Well, they will, but then it's just a quick addendum.
That's
It's
an
not the
addendum.
full EIS or full, yeah. The regs are always changing.
No, yeah, so I just wondered how it came about, because
kind of now,
when you go into something in the future, it's always kind of, you guys, you may.
well, and that's why it's only,
only now.
that's why it's typically strongest in the first 5 years of the plan, and you can still use it for 5 to 10 years out, but the more farther away you get from the original one, the more likelihood something's changed that requires more enhancement in addendums, so.
Yeah.
All right. I move to adjourn.
Is there a second? Not the board, thank you.
Do you want these tables out? You need them for tomorrow night?
Yeah, just leave.
Michael, are you